Chapter 1. Azure Dragon and Azure Dragon Year 1514 of the Sea Calendar. Grand Line. An unnamed, desolate island. This isn't a devil fruit. This isn't a devil fruit. This is an Australian lobster. This is an Australian lobster. A handsome young man with short black hair muttered to himself, holding a peculiar fruit that was entirely green with a that pattern on its skin. He took a breath, steeled himself, and bit down. Delicious. Ugh. Kane doubled over, retching. The flavor was like dragon fruit, packed with surströmming and fermented auk, a profound, soul-deep repulsion. Still, fighting nausea, he forced himself to finish the devil fruit bite by bite. This was his only chance to bend fate. Nobody understood the terror of the Pirate King world better than he did. Here, a casual strike from a strong person could split mountains and part seas. Even the aftershocks of battles could flatten a small island. The new world bristled with monsters, and the four seas were no sanctuary. Outside lay ruthless pirates, inside corrupt kings and nobles who bled their people dry. Even avoiding all of that, you could be struck down by some celestial holy flame at any moment. Fate had not been kind to Kane. Heaven only knew why. After playing Pokémon Emerald, he hadn't transmigrated into a Pokémon world, but into One Piece instead. The Pokémon world might have its world-ending crises, but it was, on the whole, a peaceful, harmonious place. Fortunately, fate hasn't completely abandoned me. Kane clenched his fists and concentrated on the power swelling inside him. The moment the fruit slid down his throat, he knew what he'd gained. A Zoan-type devil fruit, a dragon fruit, a mythical Zoan, Rayquaza form. Good thing the Pokemon I caught before transmigrating was Rayquaza, and not something like Caterpie or Magikarp, he thought, shuddering at the image of using String Shot or Splash. He pushed the terrifying alternate timeline away and turned toward the island's forest to look for food. A deafening crash cut him off. Startled, Kane spun around. Through the rising dust, he saw a giant crater tens of meters across, and in the center of it, a human-shaped dent. A massive hand dug at the earth, and a hulking black figure shot up and landed before him. 7 or 8 meters tall, built like an iron tower, hair whipping in the wind, ferocious horns on his head, dragon-scale tattoos covering a large part of one arm, a cloak draped over a muscular torso. He looked like a demon god. Grrrr! I didn't die again! Damn it! At once, Kane knew who it was. The free-falling bungee-jumping enthusiast, the hopelessly stubborn, the undisputed quit-master, one of the 4 emperors, Kaido of the Beast's Pirates, the so-called strongest creature. Kaido's eyes landed on Kane. The gaze felt like plunging into an ice cellar. Kane's muscles froze and his limbs felt foreign. One look and he couldn't move? No, he refused to behave like a coward. Kane clenched his fists and, swallowing his fear, met Kaido's stare without flinching. A little interesting. Kaido's interest was piqued. He gave a tug at the corner of his mouth. How about this, then? A powerful aura erupted from Kaido and surged toward Kane. The pressure made Kane's head swim. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision. Give up, his mind suggested. The man before him was the strongest creature alive. Losing to him wouldn't be shameful. Why endure this? Because he couldn't stand the thought of bowing down. Kane gritted his teeth, clinging to the last of his consciousness, and roared, "Don't look down on me. It's just Conqueror's Haki." Boom! An invisible force burst from Kane's mind, clashing with Kaido's Conqueror's Haki. At the same time, brilliant green light blossomed around him. Oh, a devil fruit user? Kaido relaxed into his stance, watching as Kane transformed. The light detonated. In Kane's place stood a green-skinned dragon man, slender, with sharp claws on hands and feet, yellow patterns on his body, rudder-like wings edged in red along his sides, a dragon tail tipped with fins, and long, flat horns on his head. Smaller horns sprouted from his chin, a mythical zone, and the faint gleam of latent potential. Kaido's eyes lit up. He let his Conqueror's Haki fade, slowly raised his spiked club, and pointed at Kane. "Kid, want to join my crew?" "What if I refuse?" Kane panted. "I'll send you to hell and have the devil fruit in you reborn," Kaido said bluntly. Kane gave a bitter smile, as if resigned. Then he flared. "If you want me to join, you'll have to test me first. Bastard!" Dragon Pulse! Kane opened his mouth and poured a violent, mysterious energy into it. It condensed into a dazzling shockwave and erupted with a roar. If Kaido intended to force him into the Beast's pirates, Kane figured it was better to fight and be accepted than to submit without a struggle. He'd seen how things went in Wano, how those who resisted fared better. Kaido didn't dodge. He didn't even harden his body with armament hockey. He stood still and let the blast strike him. Boom! The shockwave slammed into Kaido's massive frame. A thunderous crack echoed, and the clearing filled with choking dust. Kane's face betrayed no triumph. He didn't expect much damage. This wasn't the Pokémon world where dragon-type moves were super effective against other dragon types. Kane pressed the attack, slashing with his claws. Air slash! Countless compressed air blades cut through the smoke like a sudden downpour, streaking toward Kaido. Laughter rolled out of the dust. Not bad, kid. A pitch-black spiked club sliced through the air and swept forward. Bang, bang, bang. The dense air blades shredded apart under a single swing. Kaido casually rested the club on his shoulder, eyes aglow with an untamed light. Is that all? Got anything stronger? Having taken the Dragon Pulse head-on, Kaido was completely unharmed, at most a few scratches on his chest. Chapter 2. Join the Beast's Pirates. It's not over yet. Kane smiled faintly and raised his claws. As the god of the sky, how could the Rayquaza power not show its weather control? Rumble. The clear sky suddenly darkened. Under Kane's will, countless black clouds intertwined, merged, and compressed until they swallowed the sunlight, plunging the world into a choking darkness. Flashes of lightning tore through the gloom in the thunderheads, as if some apocalyptic force was brewing. Even the battle-hardened Yonko Kaido felt the danger in the air. This is getting interesting, he thought. That's enough. Feeling he was ready to finish it, Kane clenched his fists. Thunderbolt. Rip, the thunderclouds boiled. A thick, almost tangible black lightning bolt crashed down like a spear poised to pierce the earth. Kaido's eyes flashed. Seeing the future in a heartbeat, he shifted into his human beast form for the first time. Kid, I like you. This is the kind of calamity I want. Kaido laughed, armament hockey and conqueror's hockey coating his kanabo. Thunder Bagua. He advanced instead of retreating, swinging his club into the black lightning that seemed to devour everything. The club looked tiny against the 20-meter-wide pillar of thunder, but Kaido met it head-on. Boom! The pitch-black hockey lightning detonated, continuously eroding the descending bolt. The roar was ear-splitting. The shockwaves pounded the ground and ignited a string of thundering explosions. Even Kane, the one who had summoned the attack, was forced to reel back from the battlefield. He found a safe distance and cupped his hand over his eyes to admire his handiwork. A move rated at 110 power, pulling off that effect now was like taking a hit from a Yonko. If he tried to imitate Eneru and shaped the lightning into a ball, he might actually be able to level a country. The downside, of course, was that the stronger the attack, the longer the charge time. Against a nimble opponent, the accuracy would be a problem. Luckily for him, Kaido liked to be a tank. At the center of the fight, Kaido was taking the celestial thunder head-on, enduring unimaginable pressure. But that pressure was like the finest liquor to him, making every vein and muscle roar with life. His arm muscles swelled. The ground beneath him cracked into a huge pit from the recoil, and a massive force slowly pushed his club backward despite the stalemate. Mere lightning. Back to the sky. Kaido's eyes widened. All his strength surged at once. With a wild, baseball-swinging motion, he sent the black lightning hurtling back up. Rumble. The returning lightning detonated inside the clouds. Raging winds shredded the thunderheads. At last, blinding sunlight broke through. It flooded the world again. How exhilarating! Kaido set down his club and laughed, then turned his look on Kane with an almost indescribable satisfaction. I like you more and more. Kane transformed back into his human shape and spread his arms brazenly. Let's stop here, Mr. Kaido. I'm willing to join the Beast's Pirates. Gurararara, you sly kid. Kaido chuckled. He wasn't bothered by a little trickery. This was just warm-up. He conjured a flame cloud and set it before Kane. Come up, kid, and ride with me. The title of Third Calamity of the Beast's Pirates will be yours. Kane shook his head, twisted, and in an instant became a giant emerald-green dragon, tens of meters long. Kaido's eyes lit up. Is this your beast form? You can actually fly. As an azure dragon in his natural state, Kaido didn't truly fly. He rode flame clouds and gripped them to move. He now transformed into a 100-meter azure dragon and soared up. Two colossal divine dragons spanned the sky. Anyone who saw them might think gods had descended. Compared to Kaido's mountain-bearing form, Kane's Rayquaza seemed smaller, but it still cut a magnificent figure. On the way to the New World, they began to talk. Rayquaza, the god of the sky? Never heard of that one. It's not in the Devil Fruit Compendium, Kaido said. Maybe too few people have eaten it. Or maybe I'm the first, Kane replied evasively. Kaido didn't press it. There were countless strange powers at sea. He asked instead about Kane's thunder technique, compressing and condensing lightning like that hinted at a rumble fruit. Kane didn't hide the truth. My ability centers on controlling the weather. I can use wind, fire, thunder, shockwaves, even summon meteorites. Don't be fooled by the word control. Just in wind and rain alone, Kane could leave Kaido behind. Sounds somewhat similar to mine, but much broader. I can't control the weather at will. I can only summon a few flame clouds, Kaido admitted. Each has its strengths, Kane said sincerely. Your flame clouds are amazing. He didn't flatter. Kaido's flame clouds were extraordinary, useful not just for flying, but for raw power. In the original tale, Kaido even used flame clouds to lift Onigashima, something impossible with brute strength alone. Mr. Kaido, Kane asked at a good moment, will you teach me hockey training? Of course, but you're the first to ask me to be their teacher. Kaido burst into laughter. If only you knew how famous Teacher Kaido is, Kane thought wryly. You are the top pirate teacher. 1 strike Ryuo, 2 strikes Conqueror, 3 strikes Awakening, he mused internally. Dusk slipped in. The sun sank in the west and painted the clouds gold. The endless sea of white turned a glorious amber. Kane, who had never seen such a sight, fell silent, mesmerized. It's so beautiful. Beautiful. Kid, what a joke. There are plenty of views like that at sea, Kaido scoffed, utterly lacking romance. Kane's lifted mood deflated. If he couldn't beat Kaido, he'd want to punch him for killing the moment. The rest of the flight grew quiet as they hurried on. After a night in the sky, dawn revealed an island on the horizon, ringed by high walls. Compared to other islands, Wano Country's most distinctive feature was the towering walls that ringed it. Rain and runoff had collected there for 8 centuries, creating a vast inland sea. Somewhere beneath that inland sea lay Pluton, the weapon Crocodile had always dreamed of. Kaido, however, had no intention of setting foot in Wano. He and Kane flew on, and soon a small, skull-shaped island came into view. Onigashima. They had arrived. 2 divine dragons dove through the skull's eye sockets and slipped into the island's interior. Within the hollowed skull sat a Japanese-style stronghold, the heart of Kaido's power and the beast's pirates. Kaido landed on the plaza in front of the building and shifted back into his human form. The pirates who had already sensed his arrival swarmed toward him. Boss Kaido's back? Let's celebrate with a feast? Kane stood beside Kaido and glanced over the crowd. The pirates' faces were lit with fanatic adoration. The beast's pirates' cohesion was unmistakable. Kane's conspicuous presence drew whispers and stares as well. Was that giant dragon with Boss Kaido, that kid? I saw him transform myself. Is Boss Kaido really housing a mythical zone? Humph, he looks pale and scrawny. Handsome, maybe, but useless. He's no match for my muscle. Kane ignored the probing, sneering looks and instead watched 2 figures emerge from the building. Both were over 6 meters tall. One was tall, muscular, clad head to toe in black leather with black wings folding from his back. A long sword hung at his waist, his face hidden by a helmet and mask. Most striking was the fierce flame that seemed to burn behind his head. King, the conflagration. Beside him stood a corpulent man with sunglasses, a golden ponytail, black and white overalls, and a mechanical left hand, Queen the Plague. Besides the 2 calamities, Kane recognized several other familiar faces. Jack, taller than Kaido, with ivory decorations and a braided ponytail. Who's Who, wearing a red mask and a cigarette. Black Maria, dressed like a geisha and gazing at Kaido with adoration. And a horned pair, a sister and brother, Ulti and Page 1. You've arrived at the perfect time, King Queen. Kaido beamed and slapped Kane's back, pushing him forward into the open. This kid is Kane. He's the 3rd all-star I've found, another calamity. The plaza erupted. Every pirate, whether they coveted the all-star position or not, turned to stare at Kane. He felt his stomach drop. Damn it, Kaido. No warning? No time to prepare? I don't even have hockey yet. If I had all 3 hockey types, I could claim that post with confidence. Now it felt like being thrown into a battle unready. Before Kane could say anything, Jack, long an aspirant for the all-star slot, leaped forward, nostrils flaring. I refuse to accept this. Boss Kaido, let me fight him. Winner takes the all-star position. In the Beast Pirates, strength rules. To be an all-star, you must prove it. That's right. We want to fight. The crowd's emotions flared. Kaido grinned, pleased. He turned to Kane. What do you say? Kane smiled arrogantly. No matter how many sheep there are, they're still prey to the tiger. In the Beast Pirates, he knew, only strength mattered. Let's give them a good show. Kaido laughed his booming, raucous laugh and hefted his spiked club toward the sky. Ugorororo, my little ones, let's have a grand battle. The pirates roared. For them, this contest, gathering the hopes and ambitions of hundreds, was a welcome spectacle in their otherwise dull lives. Outside Onigashima, a ring of hundreds of hopeful pirates formed around Kane. Kaido, Queen, and King watched from the skull's eye sockets, entertained. Think Kane can win? King asked quietly, arms folded, his voice emotionless. Kaido waved a dismissive hand. It doesn't matter. If he dies, he was weak. He only needed someone who could carry the name of a calamity. Who it was didn't concern him. On the plaza, Kane's body shifted. He unfurled into a vast, verdant dragon and rose into the sky. Beast form was best for group fights. It could take a beating. There are too many of them, Kane rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. As soon as he spoke, the sky darkened. Thunderheads rolled in, lightning lanced between the clouds, and a cold wind swept across the island as if summoned. Queen pushed his sunglasses up in surprise. King's sneer faded. It wasn't that King suddenly thought Kane unbeatable. Rather, the tactical value of weather control was enormous, at sea or for construction, and already he was thinking of a dozen ways Kane could be useful. We need to protect him, King said quietly. Kaido tilted his head back, ripped the huge sake gourd from his waist, and drank greedily, liquor spilling down his chin. Below, the pirates watched the sudden change in weather and worried. Had Kane staged some big bluff? They had seen Boss Kaido call wind and rain before. No one else could match him. Impossible, absolutely impossible, a burly pirate shouted, brandishing his sword. No one could be as strong as Boss Kaido. He's invincible. Right, the others echoed. It's a trick. Attack him. The burly pirate leapt, slashing at Kane's dragon flank. Dozens followed, weapons raised, clanging steel meeting scale. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds rang out, but the bloodthirsty sniggers on the pirates' faces froze mid-expression. The spectacle they'd imagined, flesh and blood splattering, didn't come to pass. Instead, their blades rebounded, as if they'd struck a solid wall. Pain shot up their arms. Some weapons vibrated back from the impact and cracked. On Kane's scales, only faint white marks appeared, and then those marks already began to fade. A deep, oppressive voice rolled out like buried thunder from above. Kane's massive dragon head lowered slowly, sweeping over the stunned, shocked faces below. Had enough? He asked, cold and flat. Now, he said, now it was his turn. He reared his head back and bellowed into the storm he'd summoned. Thunderstorm! Chapter 4. First battle with Jack Kane's declaration was the fuse. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning hammered the ground. At the same time, the once gentle breeze twisted into keening gales, coalescing into dozens of wind twisters edged with razor-like blades. Electricity and wind interwove into a storm of death. Scree! The screams that rose from the battlefield sounded almost human, drowning everything else. The air filled with the sickly scent of burning and the metallic tang of blood. When the storm finally passed, the area looked as if a natural disaster had come through and cleansed it. From their lofty vantage, King and Queen finally understood why Kaido had given Kane the codename Natural Disaster. Of the original sea of pirates, only a handful still stood, trembling. Jack, Sasaki, Who's Who, and a few others looked intact. Though their breathing was ragged, they had clearly spent a lot of stamina surviving the storm. The clear-out effect isn't bad, Kane said, studying the wreckage with satisfaction. A faint smile curved his lips. Pathetic idiots, Who's Who sniffed, looking down at the fallen pirates. He had deliberately held back earlier, letting the cannon fodder take the brunt of Kane's attack. The test had been conclusive and worrying. Powerful defense, plus control over natural phenomena for mass destruction. His gaze lingered on the giant heavenly dragon in the sky, with a mixture of envy and apprehension. Mythical Zoans were monsters. Still, there might be a way. For now, let them be. Who's eyes slid, cold and venomous, to Jack, Ulti, Sasaki, and the others gathered nearby. The pirates who had attacked were expendable. These remaining fighters were the real threats. Sasaki and the others met his look with similar intent. No one wanted to make the first move until they fully understood Kane's trump cards. Moving first might only pave the way for someone else. For a moment, the battlefield fell into a tense standstill. Humph, cowards. Jack broke the silence. He let out a sneer, war intent flaming in his eyes. His hulking frame swelled and contorted into his hybrid form. His heavy legs smashed into the ground, fracturing it, and he launched himself skyward like a cannonball. Break him for me! In midair, his arms blurred. Two massive scimitars, sheathed in dark armament haki, struck the same point on Kane's dragon form with a shriek that split the air. Pain lanced through Kane. He felt flesh and scales being gouged away. He had to admire the young man in front of him. Jack had the reputation of a genius among the beast's pirates. Kane thought rapidly. Jack, only 18, fortified by fishman blood and the ancient Zoan mammoth fruit, was probably second only to king and queen in strength. If Jack had not exploded onto the scene so suddenly, he might have become an all-star himself. Kane could not withstand this head-on. He shrank. His massive dragon body condensed into a quicker hybrid form, trading field-clearing power for mobility. The beast shape was great for sweeping the area, but a liability in close quarters. Exactly what I wanted. And if Jack grinned, eyes shining at the sight of Kane shrinking. He completed his transformation. A towering mammoth, fur bristling, tusks like spears. He charged, trunk raised. It's over. Elephant trunk smash! The dark trunk, laced with armament haki, cleaved the air and slammed down with tremendous force, compressing the atmosphere and trailing a visible white shockwave. The blow, concentrated with his raw mass and haki, met Kane as he finished his transformation. The impact was like being struck by a battering ship at full speed. Kane was hurled backward like a broken kite, a smear of motion, until he slammed into a rock wall with a thunderous crash. Dust filled the air and swallowed him. Atop the skull-shaped observation platform, Queen shook his head. That kid's done for. Jack's hits aren't something ordinary people can take. King sneered. Idiot, use your observation haki and look. Who are you calling an idiot? Queen snapped. Ego. He rattled off titles to soothe himself. Mads' most outstanding scientist, second only to Vegapunk, pinnacle of body modification, master of biochemical weapons. His pride needed tending. Below the skull, the blue and pink-haired girl's eyes went wide. Damn it! Jack stole my chance. She spat the words out. Earlier in the thunderstorm, Little Page, the youngest and weakest, had been badly hurt. If not for his ancient Zoan Spinosaurus ability, he would likely have been a casualty. The purple-haired young man with the black and white mask tugged on Ulti and hissed, Sister, not now. Don't go against Big Brother Jack. It wasn't about angering Kaido. Internal skirmishes were common among the beast's pirates, and Kaido wouldn't get involved unless it was a sneak attack. Jack himself often welcomed such fights. The problem was practical. Ulti couldn't match Jack alone, and even with her brother's help, it would be a struggle. Why needlessly court disaster? All right, Little Page, I'll listen. Ulti wrapped an arm around her brother's neck, squeezing him in a rough, affectionate hold and pressing her cheek to his. Easy now. It hurts. It hurts. Little Page blinked back tears. Meanwhile, Who's lips curved. Sasaki, what do you say? We team up and clear them out first? Just as I hoped, Sasaki said eagerly. His two horn-like protrusions gleamed as he leered over at Ulti and Little Page, already treating them like prey. Huh? A fight? Ulti snapped, her mood switching from clingy to ferocious in an instant. Calling on her ancient Zoan Pachycephalosaurus power, she slammed into her hybrid form and shouted, I'll smash you bastards into the ground with my head. Little Page snarled and shifted into his Spinosaurus hybrid form, shoulder to shoulder with Ulti. The two siblings had survived in the beast's pirate's brutal world by sticking together. They glared at Sasaki and Who's Who, ready to fight. Caught up in their bickering, they failed to notice Jack, facing away from them, still keeping watch. Crash. Rubble skittered, and a dragon claw shot out from the wreckage, bracing on the shattered cliff face. Kane rose slowly from the dust, stones clattering from his scales. He propped a hand against the rock and pressed another to his chest where the scimitar wounds had been. Despite the brutal impact from Jack's trunk and the cuts from earlier, the wounds had already sealed, the bleeding had stopped, and the dull ache in his chest was receding like a tide. Kane looked up, a feverish grin spreading across his face. "Jack, now it's my turn." Chapter 5. The battle for the big sign is over. Kane's body shifted, reverting to his bestial form, and the towering divine dragon shot into the sky. He wanted nothing more than a close-quarters brawl with Jack, but their earlier collision had taught him a harsh lesson. Without mastery of hockey and proper combat training, he would be no match for Jack, or even for Who's Who and the others, at close range. If he couldn't win in a toe-to-toe fight, he would rely on overwhelming power. "Huh, is that guy still alive?" Ulti muttered, ignoring their inner debate as she watched Kane climb higher and higher. Who's Who's face tightened. He didn't know what Kane was preparing, but he was certain the man wasn't trying to flee. "Quick, attack with me." Who's Who drew his sword and unleashed a string of flying slashes aimed up at Kane. Sasaki followed suit, but their strikes were too slow. Before long, Kane had vanished beyond the horizon. At the skull's eye, King watched calmly. "Kaido, do you want me to intercept him?" he asked. Kaido waved his massive hand like thunder. "No need. A coward who flees from battle isn't fit to be my all-star." High above, Kane noticed the slashes spearing up from below but paid them no heed. One enormous advantage he had over Jack and the others was flight. In the pirate world, true aerial combat was rare. Pell had once claimed that only 5 types of flight existed. Whether that was exact or not, it made the point. Few fighters could sustain flight. Among the 4 emperors, only Kaido and Charlotte Linlin could fly. Among the admirals, only Kizaru had inherent aerial mobility, and techniques like moonwalk only offered temporary aerial ability, never long-range pursuit. Within minutes, Kane reached the sea of clouds. He scanned the sky, closed his eyes, and let a strange, invisible fluctuation radiate outward from him into the vastness of space. Then he opened his eyes. "First, a little appetizer for you all. Draco meteor." Dozens of colossal meteorites, previously silent in distant orbits, were snatched and forcibly dragged by that invisible field. They tore through the upper atmosphere, igniting into blazing meteors with long, fiery tails. On Onigashima, Kaido paused mid-swig of sake and glared upward. "This cursed brat, does he want to destroy Onigashima?" "King, Queen, when we strike, be careful not to affect the battlefield below." Kaido barked before Queen or King could ask what he meant. King was about to respond when alarm stabbed at him from deep within. "Brother, what are you talking about?" "Ah, meteorites!" Queen's jaw nearly unhinged, his eyes bulged behind his tiny sunglasses, and the lenses cracked and flew off. On the field below, the 4 fighters who had just squared off all turned their heads to the sky. "Little Page, run!" someone yelled. "Sister, run!" Ulti and her brother shouted together. "Is this something we can beat?" Sasaki murmured, his fat frame trembling. "No, he can even summon meteorites?" Who's Who's laughter was half incredulous, half relieved as he watched the apocalyptic display. Dozens of flaming rocks, some enormous, some smaller, clenched the heavens in a burning red. They tore through the sky, as if intent on razing everything on Onigashima. "Damn it! Kane, who do you think I am? Do I fear a few meteors?" Jack snarled, brimming with fighting spirit. He shifted into his hybrid beast form, his twin scimitars sheathed in armament haki, pitch black and deadly. As a meteor bore down on him, he advanced and swung furiously. Kaido and the others abandoned their casual observation and moved to intercept as well. They didn't care much for the cannon fodder pirates' lives, but Onigashima had been their long labor. Decades of work couldn't be wiped out in an instant. "Black Firelight!" Kaido roared. "Fire Dragon King!" Jack cried. "Thunder Bagua!" someone else shouted. 3 devastating techniques converged on a seemingly world-ending Draco meteor. The impact shattered most of the meteorites like fragile glass, turning them into a rain of burning debris that filled the sky. Still, 3 massive meteors that were perfectly aimed at the battlefield slipped past the interceptions. This was, after all, Kane's gambit in his fight with Jack for the all-star slot. Who's Who, Sasaki, Ulti, and her brother made a split-second decision. They fled. They exploded forward at top speed, becoming 4 blurred after images as they streaked toward the battlefield's edge without looking back. Boom, boom, boom. 3 meteors slammed down where they had just stood. The explosions were so deafening they seemed to shred eardrums. The ground bucked and cracked like waves under the recoil. Scorching air and debris tore outward in a shockwave that turned the central battlefield into a churning inferno. Giant craters and smoking slag littered the area, dust blotting out the sun. Ah! Ah! Jack roared, crushing at a searing boulder that pinned him. He was in a wretched state. The skin between his thumb and forefinger on both hands had been torn and bled. Burn marks streaked his massive body, and his breathing came in ragged gasps like a broken bellows. He had planned to rest briefly and then press the assault on Kane. A thunderous roar split the air. Kane, 10,000 meters above, belched flames that cloaked his entire body. He had formed a miniature great fire dragon. "Flare Blitz!" he bellowed. Kane detonated into a blazing comet, descending so fast he dragged a burning vacuum trail. Jack's pupils shrank. He wanted to roll and dodge, but the exertion of the meteor strikes had drained him. His body couldn't manage a long evade. There was no way back, only a head-on clash. Jack locked into his most resilient beast form, coating his elephantine head in armament hockey to brace for impact. The dragon head met the mammoth skull in the rawest, most primal collision. Bang! Time seemed to stop as a colossal fireball erupted like a volcanic blast. A mushroom cloud of flame shivered upward. The shock ripped through the earth, and with Jack's feet at the epicenter, a crater instantly caved in, tens of meters across and several meters deep. Chapter 6. Scourge Kane Ulti swallowed hard, staring at the ruined landscape before her. This is too much. She was grateful she and her brother had escaped in time. I still don't know where Boss Kaido found a monster like that, she muttered. Page One's face tightened as a terrifying thought came to him. Kane didn't use hockey, did he? Who's Who, recalling the fight, went pale. Page One was right. His own hopes of contending for an all-star position had been extinguished, at least for now. He wasn't going to compete until his strength had improved significantly. Boss Kaido and the others have gone to the battlefield. Let's go see, Sasaki suggested, and the others readily agreed. They wanted to know the outcome. They reached the crater while smoke and dust still hung in the air. For those who had mastered observation hockey, the haze was no barrier. Kaido's grin spread wide as he laughed. Worororo, just as I expected from the all-star I picked. He strode to the center and raised his hand. From now on, Kane is an all-star of the Beast's pirates. The gathered pirates erupted. All-star! All-star! Calamity! Calamity! Kane smiled and raised his arms, savoring the moment. The bodies littering the battlefield were nothing to worry about. Bad luck and lack of strength, he told himself. Why had they died and not Jack, Who's Who, or the others? A leader's success was built on 10,000 bones. Kane vowed that from now on, he would always be the one left standing. The next day, in the Onigashima Medical Wing, the presence of Queen, a genius in biochemical weapons and human modification, meant the medical care aboard the island was unusually advanced for the Beast's pirates. When Kane arrived, the nurses bowed quickly. After yesterday's battle, his performance had spread through Onigashima and into Wano. Everyone knew his name now. Kane nodded politely, accustomed to the attention. His calm, gentlemanly manner won over the nurses instantly. One of them gushed, "Lord Kane is so handsome." A bolder nurse sidled up to him in a sweet voice. "Lord Kane, can I do anything for you?" Kane disentangled himself politely. "I'm here to see Jack. Which room is he in?" "Leave him to me." A petite nurse raised her hand and stepped forward. "I'll take you there, Lord Kane." "Thank you," Kane said to avoid any awkwardness. The petite nurse led him to Jack's room, linked arm in arm in an overly intimate display. At the door, she stopped. "I'll leave you two alone. Call if you need anything." Inside, Jack lay like a living mummy on a massive bed, bandages everywhere, tubes snaking into him, and an array of colored medicines dripping continuously. He'd taken severe burns and multiple comminuted fractures in the previous day's fight, injuries that, in another life, would have finished him. But the world of pirates had harsh survivals, and Jack's vitality was stubborn. He'd survived provocations of Admiral Fujitora, former Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Grand Staff Officer Tsuru, and even Zunesha. His tenacity was legendary. Jack opened his eyes a crack at the movement. "You?" Kane smiled and set down a basket of bananas. "We're colleagues. We just fought. It's normal to come see you. I heard you like bananas, Kane added. King said they're your favorite. I brought some. The bedside table was empty, no visitors' gifts, so Kane assumed Jack was too proud to accept. He stepped forward. No need to thank me. It's nothing. Jack snapped, the pain making him short with the world. Bastard! You think I can eat anything in this state? He was right. Placing his favorite fruit where he could see but not touch was torture. Kane, embarrassed, quickly took the basket away and set it where Jack couldn't see it. My mistake, he said, scratching his head awkwardly. Get well soon, Kane added. We'll have another fight, close quarters. I want to try that with you. Of the beast pirates, Jack was the most suitable opponent for close combat. Queen's strength lay in technology. King was tied up with running the crew and had only recently found time to teach Kane the basics of hockey anyway. Kane had taken Kaido as a mentor, but the foundational hockey training was still King's responsibility. As Kaido had put it, I don't have time to play house with you. Come back and learn the later stuff after you've mastered the basics of hockey. Kane's offer hit Jack's battle obsession straight in the chest. His eyes lit up. It's a deal. Jack had been frustrated lately. No worthy opponents. Who's who and the others were barely usable and always avoided him. How could a man digest his training without true combat? Jack took the opportunity to talk about the situation in Wano and on Onigashima. Since Kaido had vouched for Kane, Jack spoke freely. The Beast Pirates' structure was simple. Kaido at the top, 3 all-stars, some powerful headliners beneath them, and the rest of the crew equal in rank. As for Wano, Jack sneered. The shogun's a coward named Orochi, and his men are a ragtag lot called the Omnioban. The worst is Orochi doesn't even know his place. If Kaido weren't too lazy to rule Wano directly, or if Big Brother King had the energy to manage it, we'd have gotten rid of him already. Kane listened and nodded. The details fit together into something promising, and he felt opportunity stirring. Chapter 7. Domineering Training. After saying goodbye to Jack, Kane left the medical ward and walked out to the cliffs of Onigashima. A tall figure stood on the rocks, quietly watching the endless sea. Kane bowed slightly. Sorry I'm late, Mr. King. King turned and regarded him coolly. It's still 3 minutes before our scheduled time. You're not late? How's Jack? Had he already heard about it? Kane narrowed his eyes, briefly wondering whether King truly had eyes and ears everywhere among the beast's pirates. He kept his voice steady. His injury's bad, but he's not in danger. The medics say he should be up in a few days, if all goes well. King's expression hardened. I don't care what you're up to, but if you do even one thing that harms Lord Kaido or the beast's pirates, I'll hunt you down to the ends of the earth. Kane shrugged. King didn't wait for a reply. Hockey is a power hidden within everyone, he said, matter-of-factly. It's split into armament hockey, observation hockey, and Haoshoku, conqueror's hockey. The fastest way to awaken hockey is through battle. Kane considered that. Battle against strong opponents was the best training in the pirate world, and the beast's pirates had no shortage of strength. Don't use your devil fruit powers, King added. Attack me with everything you've got. A flicker of excitement crossed Kane's face. Whoosh, he blurred into an afterimage and slammed a fist into King's chest. Not bad speed, King noted as he stayed perfectly still and let the punch land, not even using Haoshoku. Kane's knuckles hit something like a steel plate. King didn't flinch, but Kane felt his own hand throb. As expected of a Lunarian, their normal defense was almost impenetrable. Kane was impressed. King was, too, quietly. He could tell Kane hadn't had serious training. His angles and use of force were sloppy. Still, even sloppy, the attack had nearly forced King to move. King stepped forward and answered with a dark fist sealed in armament hockey. The blow cleaved the air and smashed into Kane. Bang! Kane's ribs felt like they'd been hammered. He was sent tumbling dozens of meters, leaving a deep furrow across the sand. Kane clutched his chest and dragged himself up, face twisted with pain. That really hurt. Only pain? Is his defense that monstrous, too? King's eyes narrowed. He'd expected Kane to be down for at least 30 seconds after that strike. Instead, Kane was up, and his mobility didn't seem much affected. King's mouth tilted into a rare smile. I underestimated you. Maybe teaching you won't be a waste of time. Kane sensed the warning in those words. I'm going to use a bit more force, King said. He flashed forward, Before Kane could react, a dark fist filled his vision. Bang! Kane flew again. He wiped bloody foam from his mouth and complained, rubbing his swollen jaw. Hey, haven't you heard? Don't hit people in the face. It hurts their pride. Of course not. King was already in front of him and swung again. Bang! Kane went flying once more. This time King stopped and waved him over. Aren't you going to fight back yet? Tooey! Kane spat a mouthful of blood and laughed. Then come on, for the record, I'm not going to hold back. I'm about to match your speed. You said it. I'll pick up the pace, King replied, and unleashed a flurry. Aura! 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 Bang, bang, bang! Kane charged, staggered, charged again, over and over through the morning, alternately lunging and being thrown clear. Finally, King called, This is the last punch for today. Kane suddenly saw the pattern. He crossed his arms and brought them up to block the next strike. Bang! The punch slammed into his forearms and flung him several meters. For a breath, he felt triumphant. Yes! I blocked it! He did a ridiculous little leap, like someone who'd just passed an important test. King didn't let him enjoy it. The next blow caught him and sent him flying again. Another free lesson. Never get distracted in battle, King said calmly. He retracted his fist, unfolded his wings, and rose into the sky. We'll continue the day after tomorrow. You couldn't take it, huh? Kane rubbed his aching stomach and hauled himself upright. The session had drained him. His recovery couldn't keep pace with the damage. Back on Onigashima, Kane's first stop was the cafeteria. Before he could speak, the chefs had already arranged a mountain of food, ramen in huge bowls, massive bones with meat still clinging to them, steaks bigger than his face, whole roasted chickens, and ducks. The pile was almost as tall as a person. Kane didn't bother with manners and launched into it, switching into storm inhalation mode. He gorged himself until, absurdly, he felt full as if he'd eaten 3 times his body weight. Here, appetite was a kind of strength, no shame in it. He belched softly and downed a glass of sherry. Thank you for the meal, he said, nodding to the kitchen crew. The mustachioed head chef hurried over, nervous and deferential. Lord Kane, if you like, we can deliver food to your room. You don't have to come to the cafeteria every time. Kane nodded, accepting the offer, then turned to go. The Beast's pirates' treatment of their all-stars was generous. A large house, maids assigned to look after chores, and even free access to services in the pleasure district run by Black Maria. As he walked to his quarters, something at the doorway caught his eye. A tall figure loitered there, head noticeably above Kane's. The newcomer wore a Hanya mask and long hair that faded to white at the tips. Both wrists were cuffed. He wore a tight white sleeveless kimono, a thick Shimenawa rope around his waist, and a long red hakama. Kane tilted his head. Yamato? Chapter 8. Yamato. Who called me? Yamato turned her head abruptly. The moment she saw Kane, she ran over and threw her arms around him, squeezing him so hard he could barely breathe. Shh, don't speak. Kua. Kane flailed uselessly in the snow. Yamato's strength was terrifying. He couldn't even break free without risking injury. Hey, don't move. I'm not a bad person. Yamato, attempting stealth for the first time, was nearly in tears as she clutched him. It didn't so much feel like silencing him as trying to smother him. After a long minute, she finally relaxed her grip and let him go. Huff, huff. Kane sucked in the cold air and peered at her. Why are you here? In his head, Yamato should be stuck in her cycle of escaping Onigashima, challenging Kaido, failing, and being imprisoned again. Instead, she answered without hesitation. I came to find that mysterious strong person who appeared yesterday. I want to invite him to join my crew and help me challenge Kaido. Find me? Why me? Kane felt puzzled. What had made Yamato think he was Kaido's enemy? Yamato hurried on. I saw that strong person summon a meteor to smash Kaido and his subordinates. He must hate Kaido. Kane hissed inwardly at the logic. Do you know what he looks like? Yamato shook her head obediently. What's his name? Again, she shook her head. You don't know anything. How are you going to find him? Kane's mouth twitched. Yamato put her hands on her hips, proud. I've fought all the strong people here. I know them. So naturally, the only one I don't recognize is the person I'm looking for. Kane sighed, opened the door, and let her in. The maid in a frilled uniform, Konami, greeted him with a bow. When she saw Yamato at Kane's side, she started and quickly dropped into a deeper bow. Young Master Yamato, hello. Konami, you can go now, Kane said. The maid nodded and left, head bowed. Sit. Would you like some sake? Please. Yamato settled in easily and casually removed a Hanya mask she'd been wearing, revealing a flawless, striking face. While he poured, Kane played ignorant. Why do you want to defeat Kaido? Because I am Odin. I want to free Wano and open its borders, Yamato said reflexively. Kozuki Odin? Kane narrowed his eyes. He hadn't expected to meet Yamato so soon, or for her to seek him out. Still, fortune favors the bold. Yamato was a powerful fighter. Recruiting her would be a prize. But the more Kane thought, the more he knew he couldn't accept the romanticized Odin obsession she'd been raised on. If he wanted Yamato and his crew, she'd need to be weaned off that myth. It was time to start. Exactly. Yamato brightened at the mention of Odin. Her eyes glittered as she launched into praise. Kozuki Odin was the finest samurai I ever saw. Unconventional, unrestrained, but kind, brave. She rattled off the stories the samurai had taught her and her own memories. Yamato had been 8 when she'd witnessed Odin's execution in the boiling pot, and from then on, she'd idolized him. When she'd told Kaido of her dream, he'd beaten and imprisoned her. She shook the sea-stone handcuffs on her wrists with a bit of triumph. To keep me from escaping Onigashima, that bastard Kaido put these bomb handcuffs on me. Do you think Kaido was lying? She asked quietly. Who would want to blow up their own child? Her voice dropped. But I didn't dare to gamble. Kane said nothing. He knew the sea-stone cuffs were real. He also knew Kaido's brutal parenting had shaped Yamato into what she was. What kind of parent beats and locks a child away? No wonder Yamato clung to an idealized Odin. Encouraged by her captivated listener, she dove further in, even revealing she'd found Odin's abandoned logbook in Kuri. So, if I am Kozuki Odin, I have to defeat Kaido, she declared, lifting an arm like she was rallying troops. Then her shoulders sagged. But I'm nowhere near strong enough. I can't even beat King. Kane listened and finally said, I understand, but how does that mean you have to become Kozuki Odin? What? How could it not be related? Yamato's eyes widened. She'd had no friends to confide in. Kane's patience had made her see him as a rare ally. She wanted nothing more than his approval. Kane spread his hands. I've heard your goal. You want to open Wano's borders and give its people a better life, right? Yamato's mind raced. That was it, more or less. But what's wrong with being Kozuki Odin? Kane was blunt. Then you don't need to be Kozuki Odin. You are Yamato, the one and only. Yamato can accomplish these things. Ununique Yamato? Yamato was stunned. No one had ever said that to her. The samurai she'd met as a child had only praised her dream of becoming Odin. No one is destined to be someone else. Kane went on. Besides, a mere copy of Kozuki Odin isn't worth emulating. Let me tell you about the Kozuki Odin I know, he said. Yamato nodded, eager. Kane sketched a different portrait. Odin was wild from a young age. At 6, he roamed the red light districts. At 8, he drank and brawled. At 14, he caused a massive flood by rerouting a river during a drought. At 15, he threatened a temple abbot and holed up there, supposedly making a harem, taking women every night. His tone was sharp, disdain clear. A single good deed by a scoundrel gets praised like a miracle. A scoundrel who tries to change is forgotten. And some of the stories? They're excuses. Kidnapping women and forcing them to stay is not heroism. If those women truly wanted to follow him, why did their families come searching? Odin didn't admit mistakes. He fought them. Kane scoffed. The romanticized version he'd heard from Odin's eulogists didn't sit right with him. Their whitewashing of crimes into charm made his skin crawl. This was how legends were built, by suppressing the uglier truths until only the shine remained. Yamato listened, torn between reverence and doubt. The stories she'd clung to all her life were being reshaped in front of her, and for the first time she had to decide whether the god she worshipped was sterling steel or a mixture of flaws and cruelty. Chapter 9. Convincing Yamato. Yamato was left speechless by what Kane had just said. She had known Odin had changed his ways, but she had never imagined his past had been so ugly. What you're saying is completely different from what's written in his diary. Yamato frowned. It was hard to accept. Kane snorted. Who writes their true self in a diary? Who would record all their mistakes honestly? If you took diaries at face value, anyone could be painted a hero. If you judged only by diaries, Kozuki Odin would look like a selfless leader who worried for his country and his people, Yamato protested. Kane's scoff grew colder. Even after he turned over a new leaf, Odin did incredibly foolish things. He had overwhelming strength, and yet Orochi tricked him into dancing naked for 5 years. He did that to protect Wano. Yamato's face flamed. He did it to protect the people of Wano. Protect them how? Kane shot back. Did the people suffer less? Did their lives improve? He wasted 5 years for nothing. He threw away the one sliver of hope he might have had. Isn't that the height of foolishness? Kane sometimes wondered if Wano's luck was cursed. Odin's string of blunders, things only someone with a decade of bad judgment could pull, was baffling. His retainers were no better. They behaved like a pack of fools who never thought through consequences. When Shimotsuki Yasui first backed Odin with funds, Orochi cheated Odin out of that money. Instead of stealing it back from Orochi, those thugs stole from Yasui and were caught red-handed. Yasui, with his big heart and old-fashioned loyalty, forgave them, gave them another sum, and personally taught them etiquette until they were fit to be samurai. Otherwise, the 9 red scabbards might never have existed. Yamato went quiet, her certainty crumbling. The idea of following in Odin's footsteps to liberate Wano suddenly felt like a dead end. Then what am I supposed to do? She asked miserably. I want to resist, but I can't defeat Kaido. Kane's answer was blunt. It's simple. Apologize to your father, replace Orochi, and become shogun of Wano. Yamato, who'd been carrying a treasure and not knowing it, stared. Kaido had always wanted her to be Wano's shogun, but Yamato had been poisoned by Odin's legend and resisted him constantly. Me, she stammered, waving a hand like she might shoo the idea away. I can't do it. I don't know how to govern a country. What's so hard about governing? Kane asked. No matter how badly you do, can you be worse than Orochi? Think about it, Kane went on. If you're shogun, you control Wano. As long as you don't step on the beast's pirate's toes, you can open the country and make life better for the people. Your father won't stop you, and if you don't know how to do it, find someone to help. With Orochi as the bar, even sitting back and doing nothing would be a vast improvement for the people. Find someone to help me? Yamato glanced at Kane. It didn't sound impossible. Her heart was beginning to tilt toward his plan. Kane grabbed her hands, earnest. Yamato, for Wano's sake, stand up as shogun. Her resolve wavered, but she hesitated. My relationship with my father is terrible. Kaido has always loved you, Kane said, revealing something Yamato had refused to believe. What? He beat me mercilessly, locked me in a dungeon, and put sea-stone shackles on me. Yamato's disbelief showed on her face. Kane only smiled. Do you think Kaido treats enemies like family? You wanted to be Kazuki Odin, and Kaido treated you like a son, like Odin. Isn't that proof enough? The beast's pirates all called her young master Yamato. Yamato's cheeks flushed. Maybe she had been ungrateful. Thinking back, aside from the beatings, her father hadn't done anything so unforgivable. I've decided, she said, flushed and determined. I won't try to be Kazuki Odin anymore. I'll be Yamato, myself. Her courage ebbed as soon as she spoke. She grabbed Kane's sleeve like a drowning person clutching a lifeline. But what do I do next? Simple. Listen to me. They entered the banquet hall. Yamato dropped into a doza before Kaido, kneeling and lowering her forehead to the floor. Father, I was wrong, she said, voice steady. I shouldn't have wanted to be Kozuki Odin. I am Kaido's daughter. I was confused. Please forgive me. Everyone at the table was stunned. For the last 10 years, they'd watched Kaido beat Yamato nearly to death more times than anyone could count, and yet that hadn't changed her. Had she suddenly lost her mind? King shot a glance at Kane, who had entered with Yamato. Was this his doing? Black Maria, pouring sake at Kaido's side, hesitated so long the cup overflowed on the table. Kaido didn't care. Was this really the same Yamato who seemed impossible to break? He half drew his spiked club, then sheathed it and pressed. Say that again. Father, I admit my mistake. Yamato spoke louder. Kaido looked to Black Maria to confirm. She nodded. Good, he rumbled, then burst into hearty laughter. Ugorororo, today is a fine day. Announce it. I'll hold a grand banquet. Oh, the crew chimed in. Get up, Yamato. I'll let your past go. Kaido waved it off. Yes, father. Yamato rose, smiling with the pride of one who'd completed a task, ignoring Kane's worried look. Kane, I did well, didn't I? Kane couldn't expect Yamato to keep anything secret. He sighed and smiled. Very good. It didn't matter now. Sooner or later, people would suspect something between them. He'd never had any sinister intent toward Yamato, and he wasn't afraid Kaido would make trouble. Indeed, he'd helped Kaido plenty. King, curious, was the first to ask, "Kane, was Miss Yamato's change influenced by you?" Kane nodded calmly and told a carefully chosen version of the conversation he'd had with her. "Yamato's change today comes from your steadfastness over the years, Mr. Kaido," he said. Kaido accepted that outright. Whether Kane had embellished the truth didn't matter. The important thing was Yamato had apologized, and the Beast's pirates had gained another strong fighter. That was enough. Much like the enemies who had become his subordinates, as long as they were willing to serve the Beast pirates, Kaido would accept them. And as long as he remained one of the four emperors, no one would dare betray him. Chapter 10. Go to defeat the Black Charcoal Snake. While Kaido was in a good mood, Yamato raised her hands to show him the shackles. "Father, can you take these off?" "Of course. What sort of thing is it for my daughter to wear shackles?" Kaido waved a hand casually. Even if Yamato had been pretending to win his trust, it didn't matter. So long as she remained in Wano, she couldn't escape him. King heard this, reached into his coat, and took out a key. He tossed it to Kane. The keys to important prisoners' shackles were always kept personally by him. Kane caught the key and quickly unlocked Yamato's restraints. "Oh, my body feels so light." Yamato flexed, surprised. Her suffering over the past decade hadn't been wasted. Years of wearing kairoseki had been like training with weights. Now that the shackles were gone, her strength would likely surge. King turned to Kaido. "Sir, now that Miss Yamato has returned to the Beast Pirates, shall we settle that matter? Make Yamato the shogun of Wano." Kaido considered it. Orochi had been increasingly insubordinate. "It's decided," Kaido said at last. "Yamato, you will replace Orochi as the shogun of Wano." Kaido waved his hand, sealing Orochi's fate. "Yes, father." Yamato was overjoyed. She hadn't expected him to make that decision without her asking. Kaido had always wanted her to rule Wano. King took the chance to add, "Have Kane accompany Yamato. It will be a good opportunity for him to earn merit and a test of his loyalty." Kaido knew his daughter. Strong in battle, but not the shrewdest. She would need someone capable at her side. He approved. Kane had no objections and accepted immediately. The next morning, just after sunrise, an energetic white-furred dog burst into Kane's room and yanked off his blanket. "Kane, wake up! We're going to liberate Wano." "Yamato, do you really think of yourself as a man?" Kane rubbed his hair, half annoyed. Thankfully, he wasn't one to sleep naked, otherwise Yamato might have taken advantage. Yamato shook her head and said matter-of-factly, "It's fine if it's Kane." Her blunt sincerity left Kane speechless. After washing and breakfast, the two set off for Flower Capital. "Oh, so big!" Yamato gaped at Kane in his beast form. This was her first close look at him as a divine dragon. "Come on up, let's get moving." Kane glanced back. Yamato leapt and landed on Kane's head, raising her kanabo and pointing forward. "Divine dragon, take off!" "Don't go giving me random names," Kane grumbled. "What does it matter?" "He. Yamato giggled and stroked Kane's scales. Kane flew fast. Before long, they were over Flower Capital. Flower Capital was the most prosperous city in Wano and home to the shogun's court. At its center stood a huge cherry blossom tree. Nearby rose Orochi Castle. Kane's grand arrival caught the attention of the samurai below. "Who is that?" "Stop!" The samurai stammered, staring at the dragon stretching across the sky. "Tell Orochi to come out. Tell him Kaido's daughter has arrived." Kane's voice thundered. "Kaido's daughter?" murmured the samurai to one another. Didn't Kaido only have a son? When had he gotten a daughter? Confused, they nonetheless dared not act rashly. The creature above was terrifying. "Brothers, hold them off. I'll go notify the shogun." A quick-witted samurai shouted and sprinted into Orochi Castle. Yamato lounged on Kane's head, a little bored. "Kane, why don't we just smash our way in?" Kane sighed. "Do you want to destroy the city and force the people of Wano into labor?" "I don't want to do that." Yamato went pale and hurried to reassure him. Kane's true plan was to draw Orochi and his men out and eliminate them, then announce Yamato's return so the people of Flower Capital would know who she was. Once the populace recognized her, governance and propaganda would be easier. Wano wasn't just rich in unique resources, kairoseki, but also had the best processing technology in the seas. To squander that would be foolish. As for the Kozuki family's future, Kane could only hope for the best. As they spoke, a group of samurai surged out of Orochi Castle. Leading them was a tall man with long, narrow eyes and a huge, pale blue topknot, Denjiro, one of the 9 red scabbards, undercover as Kiyoshiro. On the upper tiers of the castle, figures wrapped in black slipped onto the rooftops and watched Kane's every move, the ninjas loyal to Orochi. "Guha! Where is Kaido's daughter? I'll throw a banquet in her honor," a lewd voice boomed. A purple-haired man with a stout build, a large head and mouth, and a crooked crown leaning on the top floor of Orochi Castle appeared, flanked by samurai. Orochi, who had cooperated with Kaido for over a decade, knew of Yamato's existence. Kane lowered himself so Yamato was level with Orochi. "Orochi, I'm going to beat you up." Yamato stuck out her chin and planted her hands on her hips, hardly bothering to hide her intent. For a moment, everyone was stunned. Had Kaido really fallen out with the shogun? "Miss Yamato, are you joking?" Orochi's face darkened. He wanted to command his men to tear her apart, but he was wary of Kaido and forced a smile. There must be some misunderstanding. Following Kane's cue, Yamato repeated loudly and clearly, word for word, "Orochi, during your time as shogun, you have drained Wano's people of their resources, leaving them in misery and overflowing with grievances. My father Kaido, the Protector King, repeatedly warned you, but you would not listen. Now he has decided to depose you as shogun, effective today." Orochi could hardly believe his ears. Kaido had the nerve. Warned him? Which warnings, Orochi thought bitterly, except those pushing him to squeeze more out of the people, to extract more kairoseki and produce more weapons for Kaido's profit? And now Kaido blamed him and abolished his position? He stood there, furious and humiliated, while the assembled crowd murmured, shocked and uncertain. Chapter 11. Go to war. Was Yamato's rhetoric false? Utterly. No reasonable person would think Kaido cared for his people. But this was Wano. Kane had learned that the people here were easily swayed by a story of a prodigal child returning home. Once Yamato took the shogun's place, Kane intended to pin everything on Orochi. On the top floor of Orochi Castle, Orochi ground his teeth. "That bastard Kaido! I'll never forgive him." He barked an order. "Attack them! Tear those two apart. Make Kaido regret this forever." A tall, bald man with long earlobes and an elongated skull spoke up quietly. "General Orochi, this may be unwise. If Kaido wanted to come after us, why send only 2 people? Fukurokuju, did you not hear me?" Orochi's eyes, thin and venomous as a snake's, fixed on him. "I am the shogun." "Yes, General Orochi." Fukurokuju dared not press the matter further. He silently hoped that Yamato and the other person were acting on their own, leaving room for negotiation. Orochi snapped, "Very well. Negotiations are over. Prepare to attack." Kane laughed. "It's decided. Your turn, Yamato." "Ha! Finally, I can fight again!" Yamato's eyes flashed. She shifted into her mythical zone, Okuchi no Makami, taking her human beast form, and dropped down from above Orochi's head. "Orochi, I'm going to punch you out." "Ice Demon Slash," she cried, and her spiked club, humming with bone-chilling frost, smashed toward Orochi's head. "Jigard!" Orochi, who had been posturing moments before, suddenly panicked, flailing like a cornered animal. Fukurokuju stepped between them, forming hand signs. Ninja art, earlobe control, coiling shield. His 2 enormous earlobes extended, twisted, and braided together like living vines, instantly forming a nearly impenetrable shield under the downward-blowing club. Black armament haki crawled over the earlobe shield. Bang! Yamato's strike, charged with haki and crackling with lightning, slammed into the braided earlobes. The impact shoved through Fukurokuju's whole body. The floor beneath him splintered like thin ice. Ugh! Blood poured from Fukurokuju's mouth as he plunged helplessly through the fractured floor. Only a pitch-black hole remained. Damn, how can she be this strong? Orochi stared at the hole, swallowing hard, cold sweat beating at his temples. Fukurokuju was captain of his Onmyoban, his most capable subordinate. Could even he not withstand a single blow from Yamato? Quickly, attack him for me, the general, Orochi shrieked to the surrounding samurai and shinobi. Then, seeing their hesitation, he added, "Whoever captures Kaido's daughter, I'll reward with 500 gin." The bait ignited greed. The samurai and ninjas who had been cowed by Yamato's aura now had coins in their eyes. The girl in front of them looked barely past her teens. With so many of them, surely they could overpower her. Brothers, wealth and glory await. Charge! At the promise of such a reward, the crowd surged like a broken dam, weapons raised, rushing Yamato. Good, bring it on, she cried, dragging her spiked club and throwing herself into the swarm. Fighting, this was exhilarating. With every swing, her hockey-infused, lightning-charged club sent men flying. Kane watched the chaos below and shook his head at the clueless mob. 5 gin could keep a person fed for a week in Wano. 500 gin was a fortune to them. Putting a bounty on Yamato stirred the right kind of desperation, but it was also foolish. Still, Yamato could handle this battlefield. Kane turned his attention elsewhere. Kiyoshiro, Orochi's trusted head of guards, restrained a group of samurai, preventing them from rushing in. Kane smirked. Interesting. Trying to harvest the rewards for yourself? Too bad. Orochi's the fat clam waiting to be opened, but Yamato's the fisherman with the sharp knife. A colossal divine dragon descended on Orochi Castle, shrinking down into a 5-meter-tall dragon man. His battle-pierced eyes locked on Kiyoshiro. The guards of Kiyoshiro's family noticed their leader's sudden tension and bristled. One of them, a burly purple-haired man, reached for his sword with a cruel grin. He's probably worth 500 gin too, he jeered. Brother Kiyoshiro, watch me take this head and bring it to the general. Yuji, stop! Kiyoshiro tried to dissuade him, but Yuji shot forward like a phantom toward Kane. Kane remained motionless, amused. Yuji leapt in, sneering. Are you so scared you can't move? I'll finish you quick. One sword style, EI. Yuji drew and slashed in a single, screaming sweep. Metal clanged against skin. Kane looked down at a pale scratch slowly fading on his chest and laughed aloud. Can Orochi even feed his own guards? He spread his arms, baring his torso to provoke them. You were the one who wanted to take my head. If you can, come on! Ha ha ha! Humiliated, Yuji flushed and attacked with renewed fury, his blade a flurry of flashing steel. Clang after clang rang out, a savage, beautiful cadence of swords. Kane taunted as if rooting the fighters on. Too slow, faster. Without hockey-enhanced strikes, Yuji's blows barely tickled. Well, why? Is it completely useless? Yuji's jaw throbbed from the recoil. He froze, staring at Kane in disbelief. Out of tricks? Kane feigned regret. Then it ends here. Dragon Claw. White light flared along Kane's claws as he slashed downward with lightning speed. Not good. Kiyoshiro's pupils narrowed. He darted in front of Yuji, sword drawn in one fluid motion to block. The dragon claw met steel with a thunderous explosion. The force was colossal. Kiyoshiro grimaced as the floor beneath him buckled. He struggled mightily to hold his ground. For a moment, Kane thought of Denjiro. 10 years on, armed with 2 swords, that man could briefly contend with Zoro. Kiyoshiro forced a tight smile. Can we negotiate? Kane smiled in return, enigmatic. First, block this move of mine. Then we can talk about the future. Dragon Pulse. Kane unleashed a move with no tell. A blinding shockwave slammed into Kiyoshiro. Bang, bang, bang. The impact threw Kiyoshiro backward, smashing through walls and shredding rooms as he crashed away. Yamato, fighting furiously in the distance, saw Kiyoshiro sent flying and puffed out her cheeks in anger like a ruffled pup. Annoying, Kane. We agreed I'd be the one to attack. Forgive me, Yamato. Next time, I promise, Kane replied with a playful grin. He was enjoying himself, though this particular fight was one he was happy to leave to Yamato. Orochi fled cleanly and decisively, without hesitation. Kane had no choice but to pursue him. The day's objective was clear: kill Orochi. If Orochi lived, it would all be for nothing. No number of defeated samurai would matter. Kane followed the direction Orochi had vanished into, cutting through the labyrinthine corridors of Orochi Castle until he ground to a halt at a crossroads. Miscalculation, he muttered. I should have learned hockey before coming. He stared at the spiderweb of passages, feeling momentarily lost, when a crisp clatter echoed from a nearby corner, a bottle hitting the floor. Kane turned and moved toward the noise. Behind an ornate lattice door, a young woman sat huddled in the shadow, clutching a tipped vase and trembling. She was stunning, dressed as an oiran, with long emerald hair. The sound had been caused by her panicked kick. When she caught sight of Kane in his dragon-human form, she shrank back and lowered her head, too afraid to meet his eyes. Kane softened his voice, trying to put her at ease. I'm not your enemy. I'm here to end the suffering in Wano and give its people a chance at a new life. I'm after Orochi. Do you know where he went? At the word pursuing Orochi, The woman's eyes lit up, then dimmed with resignation. There were still 10 years until her mother's prophecy. He would be doomed to return empty-handed. She couldn't bear the thought of him throwing his life away, though, so she whispered, "You should run. You cannot beat the shogun. Orochi is protected by Kaido, the king of the beasts." Kane replied plainly, "I was sent by Kaido." The warmth that had risen in her chest collapsed. "I thought so," she said bitterly. "Orochi has used you. There are so many like you in Wano." Kane put on an expression of concern and even let a few crocodile tears fall. "I convinced Kaido to remove Orochi to protect people like you from his persecution." A flicker of emotion crossed the woman's face as she regarded him. Then she looked away. "It won't stop the beast pirates. Changing the shogun is only a surface fix." She feared a new ruler might be worse. Orochi had bled the country dry for years, but at least some people had gotten by. Replace him, and they would start all over. "You're wrong. I won't let that happen." Kane reached out and spoke with earnest conviction. "Trust me, under the new shogun, you'll have a better life." Sunlight slanted through the window, bathing Kane and lending him a sudden, almost sacred aura. The woman stared, then felt courage well up. She grasped the hand he offered. Even if the prophecy's time had not yet come, even if the beast's pirates still held sway, she chose to believe that this man could help Wano escape hunger and cold sooner rather than later. She led him through the corridors. "Follow me. The shogun, no, Orochi, usually stays in the main hall. He once drunkenly said it was the safest place in the castle." "My name is Kane. And you?" "My name is Komurasaki, my lord Kane." Kane recognized her immediately. Kozuki Hiyori, the Kozuki princess. He had noticed how composed she had been. An ordinary Oran would have been terrified by his beastly form. They slipped deeper into the halls. In a shadowy corner, a bloodied figure crept out. Kiyoshiro's eyes were full of worry, but he kept his hands clamped to the wall, forcing silence. He had risked everything to find Komurasaki and take her away. He had just missed her. "Lord Odin, Denjiro, I've failed. I couldn't protect the princess," he murmured, and then, gritting his teeth, followed them. Before they reached the main hall, Orochi's voice echoed down the corridor. "Fukurokuju, gather every samurai in the land. We will put Kaido, no, the beast's pirates, in their place." Not fleeing, but calling the troops to attack Onigashima. "Fools, Orochi." Kane pulled Komurasaki behind him. "This is as far as you'll go. Find somewhere safe and hide." "My lord." Komurasaki felt tears she hadn't expected. Seeing him act to protect her, she believed him different from the rest of the beast's pirates. She mouthed a silent prayer for his success. Kane squared his shoulders at the main hall entrance. "Let's start with a greeting." He gathered the energy in his body, the fire condensing deep in his throat. "Flamethrower." A pillar of orange-red flame blasted from Kane's mouth like molten magma. The blaze tore through the entrance in an instant, and a searing wave of heat rolled through the hall like a tide. "It's burning! Put it out!" Orochi's piggish shrieks rose above the chaos. "Yes, Shogun!" the panicked attendants cried as they scrambled to douse the flames. Fukurokuju shoved Orochi behind him, beady eyes fixed on the doorway. A giant dragon above had no doubt been involved in the uproar. The heat that filled the hall suggested the fire had come from something enormous in the sky. Kane brushed aside the remaining splinters of the shattered door and stepped through the flames as if descending in a storm of embers. The temperature barely fazed him. He walked to the center of the hall and spoke with the calmness of someone commenting on the weather. "Orochi, please die. You're in my way." The shogun's bluster faltered. "Who do you think I am? I am the shogun of Wano. If you surrender, I'll grant you treasures and women." Orochi babbled, trying to bargain. Kane sneered. "Fool, if I kill you, all of that will still be mine." He wasted no more words. Extreme speed. The dragon man blurred and vanished, leaving a distortion in the air. A thunderous impact followed. Orochi's short, flabby body was hurled like a sack by a single brutal blow. Bones cracked audibly. He was slammed into the rear wall of the main hall with such force the stone gave way. Cratered, he lay there like spilled mud, limbs twisted, blood pouring from mouth and nose, utterly motionless. General Orochi. Fukurokuju's eyes were full of disbelief, but he reacted quickly, dropping to his knees without hesitation. "My lord, I, Fukurokuju, will will lead the Omnioban and 5,000 subordinate ninja to swear fealty to General Yamato. At their leader's knee, the remaining samurai and servants in the main hall immediately followed suit, throwing themselves to the floor and shouting in unison, "We pledge allegiance to General Yamato. We will follow General Yamato to the death." Kane paced slowly, stopping finally in front of the kneeling Fukurokuju. He looked down with an amused expression. "As a loyal retainer of General Yamato, do you have any important intelligence about Orochi to report to me? He knows General Orochi's berry ability? No, impossible. That secret didn't even belong to Kaido." Fukurokuju's body stiffened. He couldn't quite read Kane's intent and instead offered cautiously, "My lord, I know the location of General Orochi's treasure room. I will hand it over to you." "Pity. Wrong answer, Fukurokuju." Kane's tone chilled. "You are loyal. Orochi's trust in you was not misplaced." I don't understand?" Fukurokuju raised his head, bewildered and innocent-faced. Kane only shook his head, disinterested in pressing the man further. He would not accept Fukurokuju's sincerity until Orochi was truly dead. In the original telling, Fukurokuju had been a Kozuki family ninja who later switched sides to Orochi, then to Kaido after Orochi's decapitation, seeming a triple-faced traitor. In truth, he obeyed one rule: the Omnioban must serve the current ruler. For that principle, he had even feigned loyalty to Kaido. Kane ignored the kneeling crowd and turned his attention back to the remains in the wall recess. He flexed his dragon claw, energy surged and coalesced into flame. Fire blast! A tremendous blaze formed into the shape of the character Dai, like a brand from hell, and hurtled toward Orochi's limp body. Just as the fire was about to consume the corpse, something miraculous happened. "Ah! It's burning me! Mercy! Mercy!" The supposedly dead Orochi shot up from the pit like a shrimp plunged in boiling oil, rolling and shrieking in the raging flames. His voice screeched in panic. "Let me go! I don't want the position of general. I'll give it to you. I'll give you everything. Stop burning me." Near death, Orochi no longer bothered to hide. He used his berry ability. His short, stout body inflated and twisted, scales erupting over his skin. In moments, a monstrous grass-green form took shape, 7 dragon-like serpent heads sprouting from a single hulking body. "Why can't I put it out?" one head wailed in horror. Orochi discovered that Kane's flames clung to the gigantic Yamata no Orochi like maggots to bone. However, he writhed and rolled. The fire would not extinguish. "Ow! Hot! So hot! Save me!" The 7 heads cried out in a chorus of panicked, shrill voices. Kane tilted his head, briefly amused. Was the burning effect triggered? But the sight of Orochi's pitiful state soon bored him. A cruel pleasure he couldn't be bothered with. He flicked his dragon claw lazily. Airblade! Several invisible but razor-sharp slices of air streaked across the Yamato no Orochi's necks with surgical precision. The massive bodies thrashing stilled. All 7 enormous heads rolled to the ground together. 1, 2, 3, 7. Kane tapped each motionless head with the tip of his dragon claw, as if counting spoils. He nodded. "Add the one killed by extreme speed. That makes 8 lives in total. Correct." Orochi's end was absolute and silent. Truly beyond saving, to transform all 7 heads at once only to die, Kane sneered. "Still, perhaps your last good deed was sparing me the trouble of guarding your corpse." He turned to the stunned Fukurokuju. "The old king is dead. It's time to welcome the new king." Fukurokuju sprang back into his submissive posture and prostrated himself again. "I await your command, my lord." Much more sincere." Kane nodded, breathing in slowly, then exhaled. Freezing wind. A biting, icy gust blasted from his mouth and swept through the hall. Wherever the wind passed, flames died instantly. The hot air chilled, frosting the floor with a thin layer of rime. "Your lordship's might." Fukurokuju buried his face even lower in submission. Kane remained composed, as if he had merely done a small favor. He flicked his dragon claw. "Come, follow me to the top floor. Those samurai and ninja, still fighting for Orochi, should see the truth." After all, the remaining samurai and ninja were now his to command. The group stepped out through the main hall's ruined doors. "Lord Kane," a clear, joyful voice called. Kozuki, who had been waiting in the shadowed corner outside, stepped forward. From the moment Kane emerged, Kozuki had known Orochi had fallen, and that the shadow over Flower Capital would soon lift. "Who is it?" Fukurokuju reacted quickly, moving to place himself between Kane and the newcomer. He knew his strength was no match for Kane, but that was the Omnioban's duty. "He is a friend," Kane said simply, smiling. Fukurokuju took a half step back as instructed, though his eyes stayed guarded. "My lord, this woman is a courtesan who was recently brought to the city to perform by Kyoshiro. Kyoshiro is a loyal guard of Orochi." His tone warned that Kazuki's loyalties might not be secure. "No matter." Kane waved the concern away and faced Kazuki. "I will announce Orochi's death to the people of Flower Capital. Will you come with me?" "It would be my honor," Kazuki replied without hesitation. Kyoshiro, standing at a distance, sighed as he watched. When Kane entered the hall earlier, he had found Kazuki alone. He had intended to take her with him immediately, but she had insisted on waiting outside until Kane and Orochi's battle was done. Whatever spell or resolve held her there, she had kept her word. The top floor of Orochi Castle had lost its former grandeur. It was a ruin of a battlefield. Walls and pillars bore ugly gouges and shattered marks. In the center of the hall lay a frozen plain. Dozens of ice figures stood there, each captured in a different pose, unnervingly lifelike. The once thick, bustling ranks of samurai and ninja were reduced to a few exhausted survivors, those who hadn't taken the 500 gold. They gripped their weapons, bodies trembling, eyes fixed in terror on Yamato, who stood in the center like a war god. "Hey!" Yamato complained, propping her spiked club Aegeon on her shoulder and planting a hand on her hip. "Why aren't you all coming up to fight? I'm getting impatient." Her tone was all bratty frustration. There weren't many worthy opponents left, only a handful of ninja leaders who might have offered any real challenge, and even they would fall to a few swings of her club. The remaining samurai and ninja exchanged looks of anguish. They wanted to flee, but feared Orochi's retribution if they ran. Staying meant facing the monstrous girl who could turn people to ice at a glance. Then steady, powerful footsteps, like distant drums, sounded from the corridor behind them. Everyone turned instinctively and saw a striking man walking calmly forward, flanked by Fukurokuju, the leader of the Oniwa Banshu, and the remaining samurai. "Who is he?" Someone murmured. "Why is the captain following him?" Yamato's impatience vanished the moment she recognized him. "Kane, look!" she cried, bouncing with excitement. She brandished her club and pointed at the frozen plain and the ice figures, pride written all over her face. Kane smiled and stepped to her, casually running a hand through Yamato's hair in a rare show of affection. Yamato, ferocious on the battlefield a moment before, giggled like a child. Kane then turned to the assembled warriors and clapped once. Fukurokuju understood immediately. He stepped forward, produced the head of Orochi that he had brought with him, and proclaimed loudly, "Orochi has been executed. Kneel and surrender." The announcement did not spark grief or a vow of revenge. Relief swept over the samurai and ninja instead. At last they would not have to face that monster. Whoever wanted the 500 gold could fight over it. Weapons began to clatter to the floor like a chain reaction. One after another, the samurai and ninjas dropped to their knees, foreheads to the ground, shouting in unison, "We surrender!" Kane watched the scene with composure and a slight nod. The situation was under control. The only person who seemed dissatisfied was Yamato. She still wanted more of a fight. "Ah, Kane, you're no fun. I wanted to fight Orochi too," she pouted. "Taking down Wano's shogun would have been more satisfying than mopping up these weaklings." Kane chuckled. Orochi wasn't much of a fighter. If it came down to a real match, he wouldn't have stood up to Ulti and her brother. "Really? Then never mind," Yamato sulked, disappointed. When she had been appeased, Kane moved on. He took Orochi's head from Fukurokuju and walked to the broad balcony that gave the best view of the flower capital. A crowd had already gathered at the foot of Orochi Castle. Nearly half the city had been drawn by the sight of the giant dragon, the explosions, and the thunder of battle. "Do you know what happened?" people shouted to one another. "Someone's causing trouble, of course." "Who could it be?" "I heard Kaido's daughter showed up and said she wanted to depose Shogun Orochi." "If that's true, good riddance." The commoners buzzed with talk, some hoping the shogun would meet his end. "Silence!" Kane's voice thundered down from the top of the castle, carrying across the plaza. He held Orochi's head high. "Orochi has committed countless crimes. He refused to step down and resisted with force. He has been executed." As the representative of the Protector King, Kane continued, I declare that in 3 days, Wano will choose a new shogun from among the daimyo. He ignored the uproar below and returned into the castle. At his signal, Yamato unfroze the ice figures. They were simply the surrendered, and they rejoined those who had yielded. Orochi had inspired no true loyalty. Kyoshiro emerged from somewhere then, leading the Kyoshiro family samurai to formally submit. Kane had no interest in exposing him. A living spy was far more useful than a dead one. Besides, Kane still held Kyoshiro's fatal weakness, Kozuki Hiyori, close at hand. Fukurokuju, Kane ordered coldly, display Orochi's body for 3 days and print his crimes in the Kawaraban broadsheets. I'll give you the specifics later. Understood, Lord Kane, Fukurokuju bowed. Repair and clean the castle, Kane went on. The main hall must be ready for deliberations in 3 days. Notify the daimyo of each district to come to Orochi Castle to elect a new shogun. Yes, Lord Kane, came the reply. That's all. Kane turned to Yamato, who was idly picking at the railing. Yamato, time to go back. Okay, she chirped. With Orochi gone, Orochi Castle held no further interest. She wanted to return to Onigashima. Before they left, Kane's gaze fell on Kozuki Hiyori. He smiled. Kozuki Hiyori, you'll come with me. Don't be a courtesan any longer. Be my personal maid. Kozuki Hiyori and Kyoshiro froze, stunned by the offer. Hiyori had planned to start low as a courtesan and work her way up to become Wano's top oiran. From that position, she could gather information among the elite and siphon wealth from rich merchants to give to the poor. 2 goals at once. Now she had a different choice. Accept Kane's offer and abandon that plan, likely living a quiet life on Onigashima, or refuse and insist on following her original risky path. As a common girl, how could she refuse a kind, powerful man and remain firm in her ambition to be a courtesan? The question hung heavy in the air. Chapter 15. The beginning of Quinn and Xiao Zi's ill-fated relationship. Kozuki Hiyori ultimately chose to follow Kane. Following Lord Kane might let me learn more about the secrets of the beast's pirates, she told herself silently. Back on Onigashima, Kane arranged for Hiyori to be tutored by his maid, Konami, while he and Yamato went to the banquet hall to see Kaido. When they told him about Orochi's death, Kaido did not smile. If anything, he cried like a child. Wah, 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 Orochi, just killed like that! Kaido gulped sake from his gourd between sobs, then suddenly flipped from mourning to anger. It's because you were weak, he shouted. King, sitting nearby, merely shrugged. This was the kind of sentimental and righteous performance Kaido was known for. After a lengthy wail and a proper farewell to Orochi, Kaido wiped his tears and immediately put on a grin. Ha ha ha! Yamato, Kane, you two did well. Yamato puffed up with pride. Of course, Kane and I, our combo is unbeatable. Kane's eyes widened. If you want to court death, don't drag me into it, he thought. The last person who claimed invincibility had already lost his mind and was floating in the sky. Still, after the mission he felt he ought to report his plans. Subordinates should report and communicate. Mr. Kaido, about Wano's future development. Whatever, Kaido waved a hand, more interested in his gourd than governance. I don't care what happens to the country, do as you like, but one thing. He leaned forward, a menacing grin on his face. The number of weapons you hand over to me each month, don't you dare give me less than that. Treating human life like blades of grass, true to form, Kaido. Kane blinked and felt a small thrill. A leader willing to delegate was a rare thing. After bowing out, Kane and Yamato headed toward the left brain sector of Onigashima. To the west of the promenade run by Black Maria lay the executive's residential complex. Each of them had an entire floor for private quarters. Yamato, how about a hot spring? Kane asked, spotting the sign for the Beast bathhouse. He'd never tried the baths while based here. Oh yes, it's been ages, Yamato said, eager. They changed course toward the bathhouse, but were interrupted by a lecherous voice. Mwahaha! Beautiful lady, would you like to attend my private concert? Queen, fat and grotesque, loomed over a young woman like a rolling boulder. A maid beside him tried to reason with him. Lord Queen, Kozuki Hiyori is Lord Kane's personal maid. Shouldn't you check with him? Kaney, that brat? Queen sneered. When I was working for Big Brother Kaido, he was still wearing open-crotch pants. When did he get to tell me what to do? Hiyori bowed her head, distressed. Of everyone present, she favored Kane the most. Still, refusing Queen outright would be dangerous. She had seen Queen's strength and status 10 years ago before she left. As she froze, a gentle voice cut through. "Mr. Queen, please don't bother my maid." Queen spun around and roared, "Kane, brat, want to spar?" Before Kane could answer, Yamato shot forward, sleeves rolled up. "Oh yes, count me in." "No," both Kane and Queen said at once. "Idiot." Kane flicked Yamato's head helplessly. "This is between Queen and my maid. Why are you getting involved?" Queen, however, secretly relaxed. Others might not know Yamato's strength, but he did. He had watched Kane's fight with Jack from start to finish. He could probably beat Yamato or Kane one-on-one, but against both together? That was a different question. They moved to the Beast Duel Ring, an arena where pirates settled personal scores. In the ring, Kane and Queen faced off. Hiyori and Konami clenched their hands, nervously watching Kane. Yamato sat cross-legged, chin propped on a fist, eager for the show. A swarm of Queen's underlings arrived, brandishing banners and cheering for their lord. Two attendants held red flags at the ring's edge. "Lord Kane versus Lord Queen. 3, 2, 1, they shouted. The flags dropped. The fight began. "Next time, put my name first, you bastard!" Queen grumbled, but his body fainted, then his right mechanical arm burst into flame as he lunged at Kane. Wedding banquet hot fist, the searing metal claw swung straight for Kane's face. Queen, who'd seen Kane fight Jack, knew his opponent's devil fruit must be a top mythical zone. Striking first was the only chance. Kane didn't dodge. He crossed his arms to protect his face. Seeing that, Queen roared with triumph. "Die, you who dare contend with me for Kozuki Hiyori!" Bang! The explosive blow slammed into Kane. He was sent flying, carving a furrow tens of meters long through the earth. "Ooh, Lord Queen is awesome!" Queen's fans screamed. Queen turned to his adoring crowd, waving and even blowing a kiss in Hiyori's direction. Kane staggered to his feet, rubbing his arm and tearing off a burning sleeve. "Again," he snarled, fists clenched as he charged. Queen frowned. Kane wasn't transforming. Was that his intent? He glanced around, saw no immediate threat, and hesitated. That pause was all Kane needed. He closed the distance in a flash. Normal punch! Kane's bare fist slammed into Queen's midsection. The impact sent the fat belly rippling and Queen's ponytail flying. He cried out and rolled theatrically. Then, a mocking smile crept across his face. "Just kidding, kid," he said. The dark bruise on his stomach faded as if it had never been there. Armament hockey, Queen had used it. Kane realized it instantly. Nailed it, he thought, noting Queen's use of hockey and the unexpected resistance it provided. The match was just beginning, and the duelers and everyone watching were only getting started. Chapter 16: Fighting Queen and Mastering Armament. Hockey Queen wasn't a fool. As the smartest member of the Beast's pirates, he wouldn't suddenly pick a fight with an important opponent without being prepared. Everyone knew Kane had been learning hockey from King. "Little Kane, let your great master inspect the fruits of your training." "Ma!" Queen crowed, brimming with confidence. Kane could only stare. Queen made for a convenient sparring target. His attacks weren't the most powerful, but his durability was legendary. Otherwise, he would have long ago shifted into his Rayquaza hybrid form. He clenched his fists, King's lessons echoing in his mind. A fist without conviction is weak and powerless. Hockey is the same. Kane understood hockey's essence, aura, killing intent, fighting spirit. Will could be turned into a weapon, but applying it in the heat of battle was harder than learning the theory. Someone like Yamato had a natural advantage in that respect. Kane refused to be left behind. "Consecutive normal punches," he whispered. His arms blurred into afterimages as his fists rained down on Queen. The hits felt harmless against Queen's tough body, and the scientist finally understood why Kane had been holding back. "Damn it, he's treating me like a whetstone," Queen snarled. In a flash, his body swelled and reshaped into a ferocious, orange brachiosaurus-like humanoid. "So you like throwing punches? Fine, I'll play along." "Windflow fist!" Queen's mechanical right arm and the claw atop his head contracted, gathering energy, then unleashed a barrage of blows that sliced the air. The dull thuds of fists connecting turned into a relentless drum. Within a few exchanges, Kane's knuckles split and bled. Using observation hockey, Queen picked out openings with surgical precision and slammed armored fists into Kane's body. Armament hockey made each blow brutal. Pain shot through Kane as if every bone were screaming. Blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. His vision blurred and his muscles trembled. His punches slowed, becoming almost reflexive. "Lord Kane!" Komurasaki cried, tears glittering on her cheeks. She never expected Kane to put himself at such risk for her, not after only meeting him. Konami panicked and turned to Yamato. "Miss Yamato, please save Lord Kane. Lord Queen is going to kill him." Yamato blinked. "What are you talking about? Kane's fine." Konami stared at Kane spitting blood in the arena, then at Yamato's calm face, and doubted her eyes. Yamato's words, however, were right. Queen wore a grim expression, while Kane, despite the blood and the stumbles, had eyes that burned brighter and brighter. Almost. Just a little more, Kane forced himself to think. He pushed his body, squeezing out every scrap of potential. A deep, mysterious power began to stir inside him. Queen felt the impact of the next punches growing heavier, and dread flashed through him. Could there really be a genius who broke through mid-fight? No. "I'm a scientist. I believe in science," he muttered, trying to banish the thought. But Kane grew more energetic the more he was hit. Queen realized he couldn't afford to continue. The longer he fought, the greater the risk of being made a fool of. "I'm done playing." Queen pulled his fist back and leapt away to create distance. Sparkling Queen, his eyes flared a hazardous red. Explosive beams of light shot from them and precisely covered the area in front of him. The arena shuddered under deafening detonations. Smoke and debris boiled into the sky. Not satisfied, light began to spill from the claws of his prosthetic limbs and from his mouth. "The farce is over." Black spark, two black laser beams streaked toward Kane. The impact was catastrophic. A mushroom cloud blossomed, and the arena filled with choking dust. Komurasaki felt as if struck by lightning. Panic constricted her chest. Queen's fans roared as if the duel were already decided. They failed to notice their idol staring into the smoke with a solemn face. Yamato watched the cloud too, and then a smile spread across her features, while Queen's expression soured. "So it truly is a matter of conviction," she said softly. From the smoke came Kane's voice, calm and oddly joyful. An invisible ripple of will rolled out from his body. Just before he was about to black out under Queen's barrage, he had remembered his vow. In this life, he would always be the one standing. He would not fall to someone like Queen. With that conviction, he felt a power bloom inside him he'd never fully felt before. Armament hockey. "Thank you for your guidance, Teacher Queen," Kane said. He stopped holding back. Transforming into his dragon-human form, he smiled with cold amusement, fighting spirit blazing in his eyes. "I'll use my last reserves to show you what I've learned." He channeled hockey again. He couldn't yet sheath his whole body in the glossy black armor he desired, but the hockey made him considerably harder, the impact resistance rising dramatically. Extreme speed! The tall dragon human vanished, leaving only a distortion. Queen's mouth fell open. He flung his observation hockey outward, searching frantically for Kane, but the speed was beyond his grasp. Then, thud! Kane's shape reappeared as if teleporting, smashing into Queen with brutal force. The impact created a sickening crack. Queen's eyes bulged beneath his ridiculous sunglasses. Even though he had pre-covered himself with armament hockey, the blow stunned him. He went unconscious for a heartbeat and was sent flying dozens of meters out of the fighting area. The bewildered referee Pirate snapped back to reality and raised his hand, shouting, "Lord Queen is out of bounds. Lord Kane wins this duel." The crowd that had worshipped Queen screamed as if they'd lost a parent. Their idol lay sprawled beyond the ring, while Kane, breathing hard and still shaking from the aftershock, stood tall, his conviction tested and proven. Chapter 17. Hot Spring Bathing and General Election Beasts Bathhouse. A large wooden sign read, "Exclusive Hot Spring Pool." With a towel draped over his head, Kane stretched, gripping the edge of the bath. The warm spring water wrapped around his body like countless gentle hands. "Ah, this feels incredible." He exhaled long and slow. The fatigue and aches from his earlier battle with the former shogun seemed to melt away. "Conan, a little more pressure. Don't hold back." "Understood, Lord Kane." Conan, wearing a light yukata, pressed harder with her shoulder. Kozuki, clad in a similar yukata, carefully carried a large tray of food and drinks, stepping gracefully through the water. The wet fabric clung to her, outlining a slender, elegant figure. Kane openly admired her. After all, He hadn't crossed into the pirate world to abstain from beautiful things. Kozuki grew a little flustered under his gaze. A blush rose to her pretty cheeks. Her body, honest and instinctive, shifted slightly to better meet his eyes. "Lord Kane, please enjoy." Kozuki picked up a piece of tuna sushi with her right hand, supporting it with her left, and offered it to Kane. He popped it into his mouth in one bite and nodded enthusiastically. As he ate, he slipped her slender fingers into his mouth and sucked them lightly. "Oh, Lord Kane, you're naughty," Kozuki murmured, a soft exhale on her lips. The warm touch made her heart flutter. Seeing her expression, Kane wrapped an arm around her waist and chuckled loudly. "Ha!" A man's small pleasures, he thought, are to command the world by day and sleep with a beauty by night. Just as the pair were lost in their indulgence, the unexpected arrived on schedule. "Kane, I'm here!" A stark white figure plummeted from the sky and cannonballed into the pool like a professional diver. Splash! Water cascaded over the three of them, giving them an impromptu shower. "Yamato, you idiot! My food!" Kane wiped his face and complained. "And this is an exclusive hot spring. This is a men's bath when I'm in it. Got it?" "What does that matter? Konan and Kozuki are here, aren't they?" Yamato surfaced, grinning at him. "They're different. They're my personal maids. Of course, it's fine for them to sleep with me." Kane laughed lecherously. Kozuki and Konan lowered their heads, shy. "I can too. We're all friends." Yamato waved a hand and sent two large ripples across the pool. "Ah, never mind." Kane didn't have time to lecture Yamato about social conventions. Yamato had returned to her female body, but many of her ideas hadn't caught up. No harm done. Kane figured he had time to straighten her out. Physically, Yamato's 30 centimeters of height made her an even match for him. Kozuki, at 1.7 meters, looked delicate by comparison. It didn't matter in this world. There were stranger combinations, and the eye candy before him was more than enough. Even Konan, slightly less striking than Yamato or Kozuki, had a clear, refined beauty. After a half-hearted romantic soak, Kane and his party ended their hot spring visit. Before leaving, Kane left Konan and Kozuki behind with instructions to help Yamato behave more like a lady. While Kane enjoyed himself, the news of Orochi's death exploded across Wano. "Extra! Extra! General Orochi has fallen." Ragged newsboys ran barefoot through the streets and alleys, waving freshly printed broadsheets. With news like this, business boomed. How much they ate over the next few days depended on it. As expected, Orochi's death gripped the public imagination. "Give me one." A richly dressed merchant tossed down a silver coin, snatching a broadsheet without waiting for change and scanning the paper. Orochi's face, caught amid the chaos, stared back from the page. "Orochi's really dead? That worthless scoundrel, my 100 gold bribe." Some ground their teeth, others wept with joy. "Heaven has eyes. That fiend Orochi finally received his just deserts. Son, you can rest in peace now." A plainly dressed couple embraced and sobbed. For a time, broadsheets were in high demand across Wano. Kuri, Mount 2, the Mount 2 bandit stronghold. "Boss, big news." A man dressed like a wandering samurai rushed in, waving a broadsheet. Ashura Doji, his pink hair a wild contrast to his calm expression, scolded. "Kawauchi, how many times have I told you? Keep your composure. Maintain the demeanor of a samurai." "Boss, but—" Kawauchi began to protest, only to be cut off by Ashura Doji's commanding tone. "Take a deep breath. Calm yourself." Kawauchi obeyed. After a moment, he handed the broadsheet to Ashura Doji and summarized. The beast's pirates and Orochi had an internal conflict. Orochi was killed by Kaido's daughter. "What? Orochi's dead." Ashura Doji leapt up stunned. For a moment he thought Lady Toki's prophecy had come to pass. "Kawauchi, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Boss." Kawauchi looked aggrieved. "Never mind. Take care next time." Ashura Doji forced a smile and snatched the paper, reading quickly. The broadsheet portrayed Yamato, the daughter of Kaido, as glorious and just, while depicting Orochi as the embodiment of everything vile: rape, plunder, murder, arson, his crimes listed in brutal detail. It wasn't idle slander. Orochi had indeed committed many atrocities, and Fukurokuju, as his confidant, knew the worst of them. That knowledge made Kane's swift compilation believable. Kaido's image had been buffed too. The piece claimed that Lord Myoo had opened factories to boost Wano's foreign trade, that pollution and worker abuse were Orochi's stubborn decrees alone, and that Lord Myoo himself had counseled against such extremes. Orochi had simply refused to listen. The message was clear. Lord Myo's intentions were good. It was Orochi who had carried them out badly. Nonsense, Ashura Doji bristled. He knew Kaido's true nature. Hoping the man would empathize with the people was like hoping pies would fall from the sky. But shouting the truth would do no good now. He couldn't defeat Kaido. All he could do was shelter his comrades, build strength, and wait for the prophecy to be fulfilled. What worried him most wasn't the beast's pirate's strength. It was the new name on the broadsheet, Kane. In the article, Kane appeared merely as the instrument by which Yamato had toppled Orochi, but Ashura Doji's years dealing with the beast's pirates told him to be wary. The beast pirates had never tried to whitewash themselves before. Was this a coincidence or something deliberate? If deliberate, it meant they planned to root themselves in Wano. That would make them far harder to dislodge. If this continued, how long before the people of Wano forgot the Kozuki name? Kawauchi stepped forward and tried to soothe him. Boss, regardless, Orochi's death is good news. You're right, let's have a feast tonight. Ashura Doji masked his anger with a smile. As leader, he couldn't show weakness. 3 days later, Orochi Castle, or rather General Castle. After 80 hours of cleaning and repairs, the castle had been restored enough to host a formal gathering. Before noon, the 5 daimyo and their retainers had arrived. Choosing Wano's next general was too important to leave to chance. Traditionally, the general had come from the Kozuki family, but Orochi had broken custom, and with the Kozuki gone and the Kurozumi line without a successor, the post now had to be chosen from among the 5 daimyo. The past 3 days had seen alliances struck, backroom deals made, and a flurry of campaigning and disparagement as each daimyo jockeyed for position. They all knew the true power in Wano, the beast's pirates, Protector Myo Kaido. But what did that matter? Power bought and sold. Being Kaido's dog had advantages if it won you the post. Inside the main hall, Yamato sat kneeling in the central seat at Kane's insistence. Yamato, restless by nature, found the formality stifling and felt as though ants crawled over her. Kane, I'm so bored, she pouted. Smack. Kane slapped her foot with a look of mock sternness. Don't fidget. Get through this. The Onmyoban nearby bowed their heads and tried to minimize their presence. Fukurokuju entered and knelt on one knee. Lord Kane, Lady Yamato, the daimyo from every region have arrived. Let them in. Kane spoke calmly, entirely at ease giving orders on Yamato's behalf. Fukurokuju, accustomed to this arrangement, withdrew. If Lord Myo Kaido was the man behind Wano, then Lord Kane was the man behind General Yamato. Fukurokuju led the daimyo into the hall. The 5 who entered were immediately struck by the sight of a pirate sitting in the main seat and the Onmyoban lined quietly behind her. Why was a pirate in the central position, and why did those attendants seem so submissive? Each of the daimyo felt a chill. Gentlemen, please be seated. Kane surveyed their faces, a cold sneer hidden behind polite composure. This meeting was a trap. Once they sat, he introduced Yamato. A country should not be without a ruler for a day, nor a household without a head for a day. I have invited you to elect Wano's new general. The candidate put forward by Protector Myo is Miss Yamato. Please cast your votes. Yamato straightened, keeping a stern look as Kane instructed, trying to project authority. The Ringo daimyo tentatively asked, Are there any other candidates? Kane smiled faintly. No, the beast's pirates will endorse only one candidate, Miss Yamato. The 5 daimyo's expressions shifted. This was brazen. There wasn't even a token contender to give them the appearance of choice. The hot-tempered Bake daimyo slammed his hand down and rose. With only one candidate, how are we supposed to choose? What choice do we have? You do have a choice. Kane remained calm. You can refuse. I refuse. Before the Bake daimyo could finish, the Kibi daimyo, an ally, clapped a hand over his mouth and laughed nervously. He misspoke. A troubled mind needs treatment, Kane said, turning to Fukurokuju with an indulgent smile. I think the Bake daimyo should take a sick leave. His position as daimyo will be... Let him have it. Kane casually pointed to a fawning samurai standing behind the Bake daimyo. Thank you, Lord Kane, for this promotion. I am Ichiro Nomura, and I swear to serve General Yamato to my dying breath. The samurai did not hesitate. He stepped forward immediately, pledging loyalty to Yamato, fearful he might miss the chance if he hesitated. The other samurai who had accompanied the daimyo watched with envy and hatred. To become a daimyo so easily, why hadn't Kane chosen them? The Bake daimyo's eyes went red. He had paid 3,000 gold in bribes to Orochi for that post. In an instant, it was gone. The Kibi daimyo leaned in and hissed, "Give it up. You can't fight the stronger side. I'll help you this once, but if you stir trouble again, I won't interfere." He subtly nodded to the samurai guards behind him. Both the castle's original forces and those the daimyo had brought were watching, poised. They hoped the Bake daimyo would act rashly so they could depose him and earn favor. The Bake daimyo's fury cooled as quickly as it had flared. He retreated rather than force a confrontation. Kane had expected as much. The daimyo with true backbone had either died or fled in the turmoil 10 years ago. Those who remained had served under Orochi. What kind of resolve did they possess now? After the Bake daimyo's outburst, the remaining four understood the situation. Kane and Yamato controlled the Onmyoban and the patrol forces, the two strongest entities in Wano. Struggling would be futile. "We pledge allegiance to General Yamato," they declared, kneeling respectfully and offering their loyalty to the new sovereign. Chapter 18, Wano Country Development Plan. The change of the Bake daimyo barely caused a ripple. Compared to the new policies Kane introduced for Wano Country, it was a minor detail. A single day off and a 12-hour workday, a brutal regimen by Kane's previous life standards, suddenly reformed the backbone of Wano's slave-run workshops. The effect on the country's factories was seismic. When the news broke, the people cheered. General Yamato had arrived. The clouds had cleared. Kane followed up with a string of rent reductions and disaster relief measures. Between Orochi's plunder and the coffers now being repurposed, Wano had enough to get by for years. The new policies won popular support within days, and Yamato quickly became the people's general. In Flower Capital, the mood was festive. "General Yamato, please try the wagashi from my shop." "General Yamato, these are just picked pears." Commoners clustered around her, offering gifts and smiling with relief. Yamato accepted everything graciously. Kane nudged the reporter at his side. "Make sure you highlight how approachable General Yamato is and how much the people love her." It was too perfect an image of harmony between the military and the populace to waste. The reporter nodded and promised, "Lord Kane, I'll write it up now. It'll be on the front page of the Karaban tomorrow." After the reporter left, Yamato finished greeting the crowd and walked over to Kane, excitement in her voice. "Kane, I want to go to Kuri." "For what?" "To clear land. The people told me it's the poorest place in Wano. Folks starve there every year." "I'm the general of Wano Country," she said plainly. "I have to go to the hardest places and lend a hand." Fukurokuju, who'd been watching, blinked in surprise. He knew Yamato differed from Orochi, but not by this much. They were practically opposites. How could someone like Kaido have raised a daughter like her? Still, it was the best news Wano could hope for. Fukurokuju's approval was sincere. Kane thought it over, then agreed. With her strength, no one in Wano posed a threat to her yet. "All right," he said. "Fukurokuju, send 2 reporters with Yamato to document everything." Fukurokuju understood. With the day-to-day political cleanup delegated, Kane returned to Onigashima. There was too much to organize. Orochi's mess needed fixing. In Queen's lab, Kane had a different kind of cleanup to order. "I want you to research ways to reduce factory pollution," he said. Queen nearly dropped the test tube in his hand. "What, you want me, the Great Queen, to study pollution control?" His face reddened. "We're beast pirates. We're pirates." "Not just that," Kane continued calmly. "I want agricultural machines, seeders, harvesters. And while you're at it, improve efficiency in the weapons factories without increasing pollution." Kane was thinking long-term, to begin industrializing Wano, even if only at a rudimentary level. Raising productivity would change everything. In his view, even crude capitalism beat feudal backwardness. Queen's cheeks trembled with indignation. "Me? Study tractors and harvesters? I'm the world's top scientist. I work on biochem weapons and laser systems. Projects that kill fewer than 24 people at a time aren't worth my attention." He flat out refused. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He also had sharper reasons to refuse. He still remembered waking from that blackout, racing back into the dueling arena to challenge Kane, and finding that Kane and the others had fled. The wound from that humiliation still festered. "Kane," Queen sneered, There's no way you'd ask me this unless our relationship was fixed. Kane tried to reason with him. Developing Wano isn't just my concern. It's part of the beast's century-long plan. Queen blew out a loud, theatrical breath. Then, slyly, he smiled. If you give me Komurasaki, I might consider it. Kane rolled his eyes. You're not planning to take her and do nothing, are you? Queen's smile froze. Kane's tone cut through the boastful act. Queen had to shift tactics. Humph, that's still too difficult, I suppose. Kane feigned regret. Thinking it over, you're right. Pollution control and new machinery are projects for the world's greatest brain, someone like Vegapunk. Don't bring Vegapunk up to provoke me, Queen snapped, though the name clearly rattled him. He privately admired Vegapunk's genius. The more you knew, the more terrifying it was. I can't find Vegapunk, Kane said, watching Queen squirm. But I hear Vinsmoke Judge worked with him. Judge might be able to help. Queen's eyes lit at the name. Judge? That good-for-nothing? He leapt up, his professional pride reasserting itself. Give Judge 2 years, and he won't even grasp the basics. I, Queen, the world's top scientist, would only need 3 months. Kane smiled inwardly. Playing scientists off one another was easy. Fine. I'll look forward to your results, Mr. Queen. He left before Queen regained his composure. No, you brat! Queen fumed after him. Then his logical mind reasserted itself, but the opportunity had already slipped. Damn it, he muttered, pacing and shaking with anger. Kane cut across the complex to the banquet hall, where Kaido was predictably found, drinking heavily and enjoying the dancers. The Lord's expression was blurred by drink when he finally registered Kane. He let out a satisfied belch. Kane, what are you doing at my place? Aren't you busy playing Lord in Wano? Kane told him about the lab meeting. Kaido waved one massive hand. Do as you like, he said, then added in his usual blunt way, I only want weapons. A leader like Kaido was easy in his own way, simple, blunt, and focused on raw power. Kane left the hall satisfied. One problem deferred, another nudged in the right direction, while Wano's long, quiet work of recovery began to gather momentum. Chapter 19. Earn money and go up the mountain to make sukiyaki. 3 months later, in Kuri's Amiyasa village, an enormous emerald dragon twisted through the clouds and cried out, Rain prayer! Under the sky god's great power, dark clouds gathered, lightning forked, thunder rolled, and in the space of a heartbeat, a fine rain began to fall. The drizzle soaked the parched fields, and wilting rice seedlings stretched awake, newly alive. Thank you, Lord Kane, for the rain. Thank you, General Yamato. A group of farmers clasped their hands and bowed over and over, filled with gratitude. With Lord Kane, who could call down wind and rain, and General Yamato, who had reduced rents and interest, this year would surely be a good one. Yamato stood in a straw hat, hands on her hips, smiling as she watched. Nearby, a peculiar old man with a long-nosed mask and a pair of wings folded on his back watched with a complicated expression. In the past, the Kozuki family had been unable to help Wano's people with the weather. Now a band of pirates had done it. Kozuki Sukiyaki, disguised as Tenguyama Hitetsu, felt a tangle of pride and unease. Since Orochi's fall and Yamato's rise, life in Wano had visibly improved. The beast's elixirs had healed lands fouled by industry. Factory workers now had time off to live. Farmers had been given machinery and low-interest loans to buy it. And this young woman before him, Kaido's daughter and the new general of Wano, was humble and hard-working, helping with the labor herself. Her effort matched that of a whole village. Wherever she went, people welcomed her. The country buzzed with life. Watching that prosperity, Sukiyaki wondered, if things continued like this, did the Kozuki family really need to return? Far away on Mount 2, Ashura Doji stood on a peak and watched the dark clouds for a long time. Big brother, this is the 5th time in 3 months, isn't it? Lord Kane's really incredible, Kawauchi, one of the samurai, said. Yes, Ashura Doji replied slowly, letting the praise pass. Even if, in theory, Kane was still their enemy, Kawauchi's family lived in Amiyasa village. How could he speak ill of the man who had helped them? Kawauchi pressed his lips together. Big brother, 2 more of our brothers left yesterday. This was the 2nd time this month. Since the new general's rule had steadied, many of the men had grown restless and wanted to go home to farm or work in the fields. Not everyone wanted a life on the edge of a sword, especially the Mount 2 bandits, many of whom had become outlaws only after Orochi razed their homes. Ashura Doji had been remarkably generous. "You may leave," he told them. "Take what you brought when you joined. Don't take other valuables. Those belong to everyone. I'll give you traveling expenses and dry rations." One after another, he had sent off brothers. The Mount 2 bandit group, which once numbered 280 men, had seen over 50 go, and the departures were picking up pace. "Kawauchi, aren't you going?" Ashura Doji asked. Kawauchi scratched his head. "My mother and little brother are in Amiyasa village, but I want to stay with you. Besides, if I went back now, there'd be another mouth to feed. The harvest hasn't even started." Ashura Doji laughed, clapped him on the shoulder, and turned. "You rascal, come on, let's practice our swords." Back in Amiyasa village, Kane judged the timing and let the reins lift, revealing the sun. Yamato came running over like a child to show off a new toy. "Kane, look, everyone gave me this new straw hat. Isn't it pretty?" Kane took the hat. It was smoothly finished. Someone had even drawn a chibi image of the great-mouthed true god beast on it. No wonder Yamato adored it. "It suits you well." "Right? I thought so too." These past 3 months had been the happiest of Yamato's life. Her distant-seeming dreams were getting closer, and more people in Wano were smiling. Yamato felt certain she had done the right thing by listening to Kane. After a few moments, Kane walked over to talk to Tenguyama Hitetsu. "Mr. Tenguyama Hitetsu, I hear you're good at making farming tools. Would you be interested in working at the weapons factory as a technical director?" Since the need to till land had led him to change trades, Tenguyama Hitetsu, who had once forged swords, now made farm implements. As the smith behind the Sandai Kitetsu and several great-grade blades, his work on tools had earned high praise. When Yamato reclaimed dead fields for Amiyasa village, Tenguyama Hitetsu had even crafted an entire custom set of farming tools for her. Yamato treasured them, sometimes enhancing them with armament hockey in use. Kane even joked that Yamato might one day forge a set of black farm tools. Tenguyama Hitetsu shook his head. He had barely escaped from Orochi's dungeons and was living quietly under an alias. He did not want more trouble. "Thank you, Lord Kane, but I'm old. Making farm tools is fine. I don't have the strength for work at a weapons factory." Kane smiled. "A technical director's job is simple. You'd guide the craftsmen, improve their skills, control quality, and occasionally join in weapon development when needed. It's as simple as being the general of Wano." "Why mention the general?" Tenguyama Hitetsu's hands trembled, but he kept his voice steady. "You jest, sir. A general must be busy with 1,000 things. How could it be simple?" "Not at all," Yamato cut in, waving a hand and counting on her fingers. "All I do as general is sign documents. It's the farming, digging irrigation ditches, and repairing dams that take up most of my time." Tenguyama Hitetsu had no answer for that. He understood he couldn't refuse. "Since you ask so sincerely, sir, I will do my best." Kane nodded, satisfied. In truth, the beasts already had many skilled craftsmen in Wano. One maestro, more or less, wouldn't change much. What amused Kane was imagining the faces of the samurai still loyal to the Kozuki when they heard their old master would be working for the beasts. The thought made him quietly pleased. Before he left, Kane indulged that little mischief and added a final reassurance. "As long as you are diligent and responsible, the beasts won't care about past conflicts. That's Mr. Kaido's attitude as well." With that, he disregarded Tenguyama Hitetsu's inward turmoil and walked away with Yamato. Chapter 20. Going Overseas. Onigashima Banquet Hall. "Our weapon trade middleman has been eliminated," King announced calmly. "Who?" Kane frowned. The beast's pirates' weapon trade was practically an open secret in the New World. Their middleman wasn't someone anyone could touch. King tossed over an invitation. Kane opened it and found it was actually a self-recommendation letter. The writer brazenly admitted to killing the middleman and offered no apology. The tone made it clear. The beasts had poor judgment in choosing people. The middleman was weak. This wouldn't have happened if it had been him. Kane couldn't help but be amused by the author's arrogance. He clearly didn't understand what Kaido represented. He looked at the signature. Joker. Of course, Doflamingo. Everything clicked into place. Kane allowed himself a small smile. King added, "They call themselves the Donkasodi family, led by Heavenly Yaksha Donkasodi Doflamingo. Bounty, 340 million berries. He operated in the North Blue before moving into the New World and somehow became one of the Shichibukai. Not long ago, he seized Dressrosa. Seems he's trying to establish himself here. Kane folded the letter. What do you want me to do, Lord Kaido? Kaido narrowed his eyes and sneered. Kane, go test that clown's mettle for me. Kaido didn't care about the death of a middleman, or even about Doflamingo's insolence. What mattered was whether Doflamingo was strong enough to deserve notice. Understood. I'll leave tomorrow, Kane said. King continued, your flagship was finished last week. These are the people you'll be taking with you. He tossed a roster across the table. Kane skimmed the names. For most of the pirates, King didn't even bother to write down. There was nothing to say, but the top entries made him pause. Jack, Ulti, page 1? Kane frowned. Is a heavenly yaksha worth sending all of us? He could understand Yamato being excluded. Kaido still didn't trust her fully. But why Ulti in page 1? King explained, we have a long-term devil fruit trading channel. Your departure coincides with the biannual delivery window, so we'll handle it on the way. Kane's confusion cleared. No wonder Ulti and her brother were included together. The channel meant the Donkixote trading network, the Shichibukai's Hanafuda. Kaido, being the strange, indulgent man he was, had found an excuse to send siblings out together. Jack, as usual, was probably just along for the ride. The next day, southern Wano, a hidden port. Wano claimed to be closed to the outside, but there were still secret routes. Far safer than hauling a ship up a waterfall on the backs of carp was this cavern elevator carved under Wano's cliffs, an enormous cave that connected the inland seas to the outside ocean. Here, Kane found his ship. Over 100 meters long, gun ports lined thick along the hull, and a carved figurehead modeled after Kane's Rayquaza form staring from the bow. Definitely the beast's style, he thought approvingly. Lord Kane, please name the ship, Speed said with a bow. She had black and white hair, carried a bow, and had been assigned as Kane's headliner to manage the crew. Kane didn't hesitate. We'll call her the Raikugo. Damn it, Kane already has a ship after only 3 months. Ulti spat, full of resentment. Little Page, we need one too. Page 1 sighed. Big sister, Big Brother Kane is a headliner. Ulti snorted in defiance. So what? We'll team up and take him down. Please, could you discuss future mutinies out of my earshot? Kane muttered, rubbing his forehead. He'd half regretted agreeing to Kaido's token inclusion of these two siblings. Jack, at least, was quiet and decent. Jack, arms crossed and striking a pose, suddenly brightened. Kane, I want to challenge you. His eyes shone, as if he'd seen his own ship one day, with a mammoth adornment at the bow. Kane managed a helpless, we'll talk after we get underway. With the 4 of them aboard, Speed gave the order, and the sailors stoked the engine room. The Raikugo began to move along the channel, sliding through the cavern. The waterway ran half the length of Wano, long enough that after half a day of travel, the darkness ahead brightened, and the roar of a giant waterfall reached their ears. Moments later, they burst through, and the open blue sea spread before them. It was a different ocean than Wano's inland waters. Just seeing it felt like a breath of freedom. That didn't mean it was safe. The waters around Wano were treacherous with whirlpools. Still, the Raikugo was solid and the crew experienced, and they slipped away from the breakers into open sea with no problems. Once they'd cleared the coast, Page 1 eagerly produced a fishing rod and began casting off the side. He baited, cast, and reeled with the practiced motions of someone who fished often and usually came up empty. Of course, his failures were largely thanks to Ulti. No angler can concentrate with someone constantly pestering them. On deck, Kane and Jack faced each other. They'd agreed, tacitly, not to use weapons or devil fruit powers, too risky aboard a big ship. Normal punch, Kane said, and brought his armament hockey hardened fist at Jack. Jack tilted his head and slipped the strike by. After 3 months of relentless training, Kane had mastered hardening and flowing armament hockey, could use observation hockey at will, and could even release controlled bursts of Hao Shoku when needed. What remained were the higher-level techniques. Kaido hadn't held back in instruction. Internal destruction, future sight, Hao Shoku infusion, he taught without restraint, living up to his reputation as Kaido of the 100 Beasts. Still, knowing the theory wasn't the same as being able to execute it. Advanced hockey techniques can't be taught, Kaido had said. You only get them by fighting strong opponents, again and again, until your spirit and body shift and you get that glimpse of insight. That was one reason Kane had accepted Jack's challenge. Even if Jack couldn't push him to the limit, the repetition of real combat would build the foundation Kane needed.